Hello and welcome to GeekVerse Sidequest, your weekly stop for video game news, reviews, and more here on the GeekVerse Podcast Network. I'm your host, the Golden Lupin, Dylan Musson. Have with me the leaker himself, Travis. Did you do it? Did you leak the info?
I did it for GeekVerse. You know, none of us are working jobs now because I had to leak GTA 6. No, I would never do that. But yes, I'm here. I forgot to ask you. We went to diving. How's your day going, sir? We jumped road. We sat down. We hit record. You know.
I've had an excellent day. I went on two nice walks today. The first walk was at like 6:50 a.m. because they take the garbage out, and it's like, okay, I'm outside now. Feels good.
Yeah.
Go for a walk, and then we almost bumped into a bear. We saw a bear down the street.
Do you got spray for the hikes you guys do? I feel like you need spray.
No, he was on the sidewalk. He was in like the residential zone. Like we weren't even in the woods.
Digging through people's garbages.
I've noticed though, because in my up where I live, kind of in the mountain, there's woods. And like this is the third bear I've seen. I mean, maybe it's the same bear 3 times, but they're always walking on the sidewalk very politely. Like always on the sidewalk, never on the grass next to the sidewalk, never on the street itself. So
maybe it's
I feel like they're really trained well there up here.
Well, I was gonna say though, maybe if you start seeing more, maybe it's gonna be like a Planet of the Apes situation, but with bears. Like they are starting to talk. Like that'd be scary. Like it's already scary enough Planet of the Apes, and you think what they could do. Imagine if it was bears that had fully thought minds. They could talk, coordinate. Their power, we'd be done for again. Almost any animal. Almost any animal. Even the birds. I think if birds could talk to each other and coordinate attacks, we might be done for. You know.
Well, I mean, there's like a news story where like a bear like opened a car door and like went in the car. Like they can be pretty smart. I mean, usually it's like if there's food, they will figure out a way in essentially. So. Yeah, I guess if we became the food that they were hunting, it would be a bad time. But no, other than that, I've had a great day, so I'm very excited for this episode. How about you? How was your? You had a day off, I believe, today, so you had a little Travis told you moment early in the morning, all that.
Yeah, I did and I didn't. I technically get a day off tomorrow, but it's just the case of sick children. There's a certain like temp that children can't be, and both Logan and Ellie are that. So today was just I hate doing that because like we let the girls watch TV shows, but we don't like to let them watch like too much. But the days where it's sick, that's just a full on. We're doing the couch. We got the bed out in the living room, and we just we watched Halloween Town 1 and 2. Where that's why that's why I don't.
I haven't watched 2 in a long time. How is 2 hold up?
Gwen near the end said, "I'm bored. Can we switch to something else?" So there you go.
That's a bad sign.
So I think first one was much because the problem is I don't know if you remember with 2, it takes a while to get to some really like spooky stuff. It's about the whole town turns to gray.
Right, I remember that. Yeah.
So there's actually for a kid show, there's lots of talking. So I could see why they kind of got bored. That with the first one, it's like ghoul, ghost, goblin, but and then it was Goosebumps. So we just said that's why I don't have the usual side quest colors because I'm already in Halloween mode. So every cast chance to me, it's the orange. I was talking about this. It's just like sometimes I wait till October, but then I never watch what I want to. It always gets put off. Like, oh, I have all these movies. So it's like I'm gonna start now because I'm doing Goosebumps, which we do all the time. So I'm getting all the easy ones out of the way, and then I can kind of reach to some other ones. So it was still a fun day, but had some restless kids. So I'm ready to sleep later.
I hear you. Yeah. Well, you're not going to be sleeping anytime soon because we have a lot to talk about today. We got a lot in the news. We're going to talk about the games we've been playing, and we have a juicy main topic as well. So this is going to be a long one. Buckle in to get some plugs out of the way. Make sure to join that GV Discord. That's always a good time over there. Make sure to check out that Patreon because if you are, you could get the next Out of Mana episode 11, up there right now, ad-free and early. If not, you'll have to wait until, I believe, next Sunday is when it will be coming out. So check that out then. If not... And yeah, the Twitters, Facebooks, all that good stuff. Thank you to Amanda for making the music and Taylor for the thumbnails. He threw me off with the thumbnail today, I'm going to be honest, because I always put like a few images and I try and put them in like order of importance. And he definitely took that last one I put in clearly in the last slot and put it as the main picture. He
took Midnight Suns and put it in the main picture?
No, he put Suikoden at the main picture, which like we'll probably talk about for like 3 or 4 minutes. So sorry to anyone who clicks on that because they see Suikoden. Probably won't be the longest discussion on that, but we will talk about it among other things. Last week on SideQuest was super busy. Me and Taylor, the man himself, the thumbnail master, talked all about the Ubisoft Forward, which was a lot of fun. A lot of Assassin's Creed talk there, which was great. And then me and you did an impromptu episode talking about the Nintendo Direct and State of Play. So a lot of stuff going on SideQuest right now. And then on the main feed, we got She-Hulk, we got Rings of Power, we got House of Dragons. We got Travis Told You. We got...
Andor starts this week as well for
Andor
Star
starts
Wars,
this week, finally.
Yeah.
Don't Worry, Darling, we're reviewing this week.
Busy times.
Yeah, lots of stuff going on. It's a very exciting time, so make sure to subscribe to all those beautiful feeds. Travis, any other shout outs from you before we get into this?
No, you mentioned Patreon. The other thing is just that we have one Originals episode up there. We're recording another one this week. The Marvel ranking phase 5 and 6 by Hyper Excitement just went up. And then also our After 9 is going up tomorrow. I'm currently editing that. That was probably the smallest After 9 we did. It was just us three and S-Bubs. But you know what?
Okay.
It was kind of fun because it's just like, in the future, maybe I'll have to start pulling people, because I can't make it.
Yeah.
So, but it's always tough, right? Because even like Carl, like more was last minute where I plan on. But you know what? It was kind of fun. It was just us three and I suppose we chat a bunch about random stuff like the Raw. It was a very just kind of like a laid back GeekVerse old school episode. We talked about the Rock's career. We talked about like movies S-Bubs hadn't seen before and stuff. So and we talked about like Halloween preparation. So it was like a low key one, but it was a fun one. So yeah, Patreon got lots of stuff. I think that's everything.
Yeah, in the Discord today, everyone was talking about the movies they've seen this year and like putting their letterbox up, and I think S-Bubs had like 36 movies watched this year. I'm like, oh my god, I am behind. He's blowing me out of the water right now. I'm at like maybe 15 or something. I don't know. I've played a lot more games than I have watched movies this year, so I got to catch up. I will catch up before Golden Geeks time, of course, but yeah, I'm definitely building up that backlog.
I got 43 S-Bubs, so suck it. Yeah.
I mean, I could be wrong on that number too. I think that's what I saw, but
and I'm knocking down one more this week because Dahmer's out on Wednesday, so boom,
which has just a very weirdly grammatical title. I don't know if you talked about that. But there's
the
a hyphen in there. There's a colon in there.
The story of Jeffrey Dahmer, the monster. It's just like you don't even got to put that part. We know he's like most serial killers are monsters, but
It's silly stuff. Okay, let's talk about the games we've been playing here. Now, you didn't put anything in the doc, but I'm curious what you got. What have you been playing lately?
I completely forgot that. So now I actually have two editions to talk about because I feel like every time I'm coming here, I'm just still playing Elden Ring, and I still am, but now to additional that. So I have two. One is I finally broke and bought the WWE game, the 2K22.
The new one?
Yeah, because I did it for my last week off, and my dad just gave me money for a birthday present. So I was like, okay, well, I have no excuse now. I'm going to do it. And I was enthralled in that for a few weeks. I think I've talked about this many times where in the old games there was like a GM mode, like lots of sports games have, where you are just the manager. So you're promoting the shows, you're picking who fights, you're picking like what type of stage you're going to book, what merch you're going to. So like that stuff that even with football games, like I like that a bit more than actual playing now, because it's just kind of fun because it's almost, it's repetition, but it's its own type of repetition. And I feel like it's much like a Warzone where you're pretty much doing the same thing every time, but it's just like, oh, you could do this a little better or that a little better, because if you book two guys that fight, if it's not a good match, you'll lose fans. So you go, oh, I got to get them back and stuff like that. You can be on a roll. People get injured. People are always trying to hold you up for $100K as well. You make one wrong move, and sometimes you only got like $90,000. Like, I can't do this, but if he's your most popular star and he leaves, it's just gonna hurt. So how
many people do you have on like your team that you're managing?
So technically, you can have as many as your budget allows.
Okay. So you could just get a bunch of cheapos if you want.
Yeah, but technically you only need 8 because there's 4 match slots. So each match could have one guy versus one guy or something like that. But you need more people, because if people, guys or girls, are wrestling every week, they have a stamina meter and it goes down and down. And once you get to, it's at 100 and then it's 100 to 0. Once you get to around 40, you get like these orange bandages. Once you get to 30, they're oranger. Once you get to 20, they're like red. So like if they wrestle while they're red, there's a high chance they could get injured, and that could just be 1 week off the show. That could be a month. And
interesting.
If they're popular, it's like then your ratings are going down because the people that pay tickets to see this big star is not on the show anymore and stuff like that. Or there's times where they'll email you and say, hey, I need some rest, and you might not be able to. And if they get injured, they get really mad because they email you back. They're like, I told you I needed rest and you didn't listen to me and stuff like that. So you start off with like $500,000, and their popularity depends on, the money depends on their popularity. So if you were the most popular superstar, you might be going for like $250,000. So it might be half my budget right there. So it's funny. So I played the actual game of like the wrestling I've played. Like I like that. It's great because I haven't got one in over a decade. It's been a while, and it's a lot smoother, and they tried to make it more arcadey, so I like that. But this GM mode, in a matter of like a week and a half, I played it 3 times, like a full 52 weeks, because I won once the very first time. The last week I beat them, and the second time I played, I was very arrogant, and the computer beat me. I thought I had it figured out.
Whoa.
So the third time I went off back to work. I was like, I need to beat this guy, and I did. So luckily, it's it's very much fun. It's scratching that itch, so I'm happy. And just all the things like I showed the kids, and I think that's where we talked about it. But like the community is crazy. Like the characters they've made from like Spider-Man to Scooby-Doo, like they look legitimately like these characters and stuff like that. Someone made Jesus. It's just like all this weird stuff. But the kids, I should have never showed them that because they're disappointed when I don't play as Scooby-Doo.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then so I had a
like
fun time.
Scooby-Doo or Shaggy? You mean?
Scooby-Doo.
Oh my God! You can make like.
They make a dog because you can make people's like same way as like Elden Ring where you change their features.
But he stands like a regular human.
Yeah, he stands like
he's wearing a costume.
Yeah. Someone made a Doc Ock. I'll have to send you this. Someone made a Doc Ock one though where they made their legs look like the tentacles, so their body is just like moving around. Very strange. Cool. Yeah, I'll find a few.
Wow.
It's like a real mind f. Like it's a brain tease. You're trying to figure it out, but people are just nuts in there. I could never do that. I just download it. I give them the thumbs up and I download it. So
I feel like this is the first year I've ever heard people raving about a WWE game. So it's definitely like, it seems like it's really exploding for once. That's cool.
And it's good because the one prior to this was, I've been itching to buy one because like I said, it's been over 10 years at that point. It was 8, but the last one was notoriously very bad, very buggy. Graphics were bad. People were not looking. I remember Wrestler just shared an image of them in the game and they were just like WTF. Like they did not look like each other. Like it was really, really bad, especially for 2K who's, been doing sports games for a while. So that was the for me pick, and then I don't have much to say about the second one, but I had shared this on social media that Gwen, because she filled her sleep chart, we played Paw Patrol the movie, the video game. So I've played / helped with 2 levels, and all it is they plop you down in the city. You get 2 dogs because they all. Do you know anything about Paw Patrol?
Not much. No.
They're all like, one's a firefighter, one's a police dog, one's a flying. So they all have their abilities. So there's gonna be something where, there's a circle that's blue. You have to be. I don't want to screw this up for the kids. You have to be Chase because he has like police ability to get through the circle. But pretty much all it is, they plop you down in a city and you just have to run and get treats and get to the end. There's no way to die, and technically there's no way. It is good, and there's no way to lose. It's just you got to get from point A to point B, and you got to try and get all the treats. The only thing that's tough is like, and Gwen's learning this, it's like me learning Mario. Like there's some things you got time jumping wise, and that gets her frustrated because it's that classic of just like, especially too like the controls. Because it's a kid's game, it's not a well-made game. It's very like she was doing it by herself, and I was like, great. And then I helped her when I picked up this character. I moved him around. He was moving rigid. It felt like a GameCube game, and this is a game that came out the past years because they made it for the movie, and it's because it is a kid's game. But so we only did those, and it was fun though to start getting in there and seeing her mind work and stuff. And eventually we'll probably transition into like Mario and stuff like that. But Paw Patrol, just because it's a big deal. And every time I'd go to Games Pass, first game in the kids section is always those Paw Patrol games because I'm sure other parents are downloading them. And that's been my thing, is wrestling and then dipping my toes into Paw Patrol, which is just I was, as a parent, I was happy with it. It felt like it was a really good like step into, because I didn't know, I'd never play this game, so it's like, it's gonna be too hard, and then she's just gonna hate video games. But it felt like a really good setup bounce. So whatever their charger and stuff, I was pretty happy with the Paw Patrol team. So that's what I've been playing.
Nice. Yeah, it's kind of fun to have a callback to like these almost cheap license games,
Yes.
Especially the ones that are called like the license and then the movie, the game. Like that that's a true combo right there that we've seen many times before. So that's cool.
Yeah.
It was fun to hear that story. I just have a couple games to shout out. One being Fall Guys. So a couple of months ago, Fall Guys finally went free to play. Originally it was on PS Plus, but I wasn't subscribed during that month, so I didn't have it at the time. But a couple months ago it went free to play. And about a month ago I jumped in and played a match, and it was it was pretty fun. It was all right. And then I did. Go ahead.
Was this your first time playing Fall Guys, right?
Yeah, I never played it.
Okay, I still haven't yet either. I want to, but okay, I just wasn't sure if you played it at friends or something like that. So
never had the opportunity. And then last week I played my second game, and I just had to brag about this, but I got a win in my second game of Fall Guys. So I was feeling pretty pumped on that. I got my crown. I honestly I don't know how much I'll play it. I feel like my goal in those kinds of games is like, okay, once I get a win, then I'm like ready to dip. But if I'm only 2 games into Fall Guys, I feel like I haven't even seen all the mini games yet. So I'll probably play it some more. But I mean, it's exactly what you expected, and it is fun. I like checking out those battle royale games that are just very simple to get into.
But you climb the mountain, so that's what you're saying. It's kind of, have you? Because I haven't looked into this. I know it's like a similar to that. I don't know if it's a free to play. I've been hearing things about this Rumbleverse game. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I know a little bit about it. I haven't played it myself, but it does seem fun. Like that'd be a fun one for all of us to get in a lobby together. I don't know. I know you can at least like queue as 2 people. I don't know if you can queue as 3, 4, anything like that. But it seems fun. It has like a very simple arcadey play style to it. And that one's definitely more like traditional battle royale in terms of dropping out of your plane, like Warzone, like a Fortnite, instead of Fall Guys, which is like, it's battle royale-ish, but it's still like these mini games and splitting you into different rounds and stuff like this. So, yeah, it seems pretty cool. And I like the art style. It's kind of just a goofy game. It definitely has that Fall Guys energy to it.
Yeah, that's why I was asking, because it reminded me of that, but I'm like, oh, it's like a wrestling one, so I'm going to have to tinker. I still haven't even looked if it's like free to play and stuff like that.
Yeah, me neither.
So
I'll check it out at some point. Then the game I wanted to shout out is called Midnight Fight Express. This came out in August, but I hadn't got around to checking it out until now. And I guess the best way would be to compare it to like Hotline Miami. It's kind of like this top-down isometric sort of camera. You're playing this guy who's going around just like fighting criminals in these very short levels. You're going from point A to point B. And yeah, like each level is like very short, which I like literally like 2 to 3 minutes, maybe 4 minutes at like the longest. Like it's just a few rooms each. But then there's just like a ton of levels. But each level has like all these like bonus objectives in there, like beat it in this amount of time, or you like take out this many enemies with the baseball bat, stuff like that. So you can go back and like replay the levels and get like mastery levels in them. But I've just kind of been just going from level to level, checking it out. But yeah, just very frantic gameplay style, it's a very goofy game too, and like very intentionally, where like the enemy types, they're just called like bozos. That's like the default name for the enemies. You're just fighting all these bozos, but it like has this big dramatic entrance when you first encounter a new enemy type. So when it pops up on screen, it's like bozos, and then it's showing you like these different types of bozos that you're gonna fight, and they're just generic criminals. Like they don't have a weird aesthetic or anything, but a very silly game in that way. And yeah, I mean, it's on Game Pass, so it's like an easy, just check it out kind of thing. Jump in, jump out. So I'm definitely gonna keep playing it. I don't know if I think there's like at least 50 levels in the game or something. I don't know if I'll go all the way through all of them, but if anyone's looking for just like a simple fighter that, it has parrying and dodging, it has like all those kind of more intense mechanics, but you can also just like turn your brain off and jam around in these levels, and it's like nice aesthetic. I like the visuals and all that, so definitely a shout out to that one. Does that sound interesting at all to you? Does that sound like your cup of tea?
I still have to play Hotline Miami though too, so that's the thing where like I think I'd have to see it. I think the descriptive more of the world is what gets me, like the bozos, things like that.
It's a cool world, yeah.
Yeah, that's what would maybe get me more. But I still got to even get in that because I've seen Hotline Miami and I've wanted to always jump into it, but it always be on Games Pass is a bit of a easier. Okay, I could download this and try it. So
yeah. All right, with that, let's jump into our first ad break, and then we'll come back and talk about the news. Travis, we are back. As your nickname is alluding to, over the weekend there was a huge leak, one of the biggest leaks in video game history, I want to say, for GTA 6, Rockstar's game that we've started to get some rumblings about. I think it was a couple months ago where we found out, okay, it's probably Miami. It sounds like you're going to have male and female as your protagonist characters, or at least them, maybe more, in a kind of Bonnie and Clyde is what they've compared it to. And I mean, that was more or less it that we got in terms of details. But yeah, over the weekend, as I said, a ton of videos were leaked, and it seems like a bunch of source code as well. So a lot of potential repercussions for this, and it's hard to know the full scale of it. I guess I'll put, like, it's weird to say this, but I'll put a spoiler warning out there. I know a lot of people don't want to hear about leaks or don't like to talk about that stuff. So just skip ahead a few minutes. But we both watched some of the videos. We indulged. So we're going to talk a little bit about this. But just in terms of, before the gameplay itself, like, this is a huge leak. Like, what did you first think when you saw that this happened?
I didn't think it was real. I bought in that theory that SWeb shared in the Discord that people were thinking it was like a modded Watch Dogs because there's just some movements and stuff. I was like, you know what, I could buy that. And it's just so crazy because Rockstar is just this company that is ironclad. Nothing usually gets out. And even these rumblings like, oh, a Bonnie and Clyde. Like, to me, I don't even consider that big. I'm like, okay, someone got a snippet of what the story is. That's nothing crazy. The same thing, I'm pretty sure before GTA 5, we heard a snippet of, oh, you might be playing as multiple characters. I don't consider that like a big, those are just rumors going around. But it's definitely, that's been the not fun, I guess, but the debate, right? Like, what's the biggest leak and everything like that. But like I said, I didn't believe it, and then I just felt like my timeline. It's one of those things where anything, whether it's TV, movie, or video games, you know when something's mainstream when it's just riddled in your timeline. And I follow like enough gaming personalities and people that are a fan of gaming, so I see stuff where I go, oh, this is really popping. There's a big news thing, but this was just everywhere. Even if I wanted to scroll past it and ignore it and not see anything, that wasn't happening. It was popping up all over my Twitter timeline. Someone sharing this and everything, whether it's good or bad. For the bad stuff, I think most people have said this already. It doesn't really matter because this is all in the works. It's in development. I don't understand anybody worrying about the game at this point. And I think it's a big blow. It does suck, but I agree with what Neil Druckmann said, who I think still had the worst leak of them all, because I think this sucks because GTA is definitely, I think, the biggest gaming franchise currently in the world. It's of all time, sure, but right now I still think it is the biggest. Where that happened with GTA 5, the hype for this, I think that has just become such a gargantuan juggernaut giant in the gaming world, where it's the most mainstream thing. Because when 6 comes out, that's the thing that he was saying. It's like, this is going to suck now, but in the long run, it's not going to matter. And that's what I'm going to say. The same thing is, at the end of the day, this game will still sell a lot. It's not like Last of Us, where I didn't know this going into Last of Us 2, thank goodness, but like Joel's story leaked, stuff with Abby leaked, the pacing of the game leaked, and that was people were going in the game knowing all this stuff, and I had no idea, so I was lucky about that. Where this, it's a lot of how the game works and plays, but what I will just say is this did actually get me more excited, but this just looks like what I would hope a next-gen GTA would look like. Like, it doesn't look like, to me, there's like one minor thing of like, oh cool, you can mod the inside of your car now, but I don't think, like, it just looked like, for me, to granted, like, it looked better, not look better, but it just like, I didn't think about what a next gen GTA would look like, and when I saw just the way the characters were, like, oh man, that's really cool, I can't wait to play this. But fortunately for them, I thought, other than confirming the Bonnie and Clyde thing, it didn't spoil a massive amount of story, just showing some stuff in the gameplay and everything.
Yeah, I think that part of it is hard to say, because as you mentioned, like, there's apparently 90 videos out there at least, and like I just watched a couple of them, so
that's true.
Who knows how much stuff is in those other ones? I mean, I'm sure the ones I saw were probably like the most substantial ones, but I didn't want to go too deep on it. And then something like the source code leaking, if that's like the whole game's code, or at least like the whole game's code at that point where that backup of the code is, like there could be a lot of information in there in terms of like spoiling more things. So I think we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I mean, even there's a bunch of grains of salt we have to keep here. I mean, it sounds like this is confirmed. Jason Schreier, who's very reputable, has a source on the inside of Rockstar, who said, yeah, this is all real. So it sounds like
Rockstar confirmed it this morning. Did you see that?
Yeah, I guess they had their like statement too, which their statement was like the lead, like there was nothing to really break down from their statement. Like it was just like, yeah, we acknowledge this exists and we're going to keep making the game. So I feel like a lot of people I saw online were saying how this is such a big deal that it's going to delay the game by several years, and they're going to have to do all this stuff to fix it and whatnot. And I just don't know if that'll be true. I feel like people are maybe trying to be hyperbolic to get some clicks or some engagement or something, but I just don't see how that's possible. I feel like Rockstar is just on another level that I don't know if this is going to matter too much in the long run. Now, obviously, if there's like ransom that has happened in the past, where the guy who has this stuff is like saying, hey, give me all this money and I, will take it down or whatever it is, that is important. But at the same time, they have so much money that I don't know if that's going to affect the game. It's not going to delay it by 6 years because they don't have funding anymore or something like that. So just to get those things out of the way. But, in terms of the gameplay itself, there's a couple things like I noticed too, where I'm just going to call her Bonnie, but like the female main character, I presume that's who we were seeing in some of these videos. For example, her hair was in like a ponytail, and it was a solid object. Like, it did not move at all. Yeah. Her hair didn't flow or bounce around. So to me, that just shows that, like, okay, this is clearly not like in a finished state at all. And I mean, even the gameplay, like, to me, it really looked like GTA 5, and maybe it's been a minute since I've jumped in there or something, but it didn't look that different. But this footage could be a couple years old at this point. I think we know that it's at least somewhat recent because something with the leaks that like is showing what what PC they're playing it on. It has like the graphics card is like I think like a 3080, which have only been out for 2 years. So presumably the footage is at least from in the last 2 years. A lot of the footage too has like the debug screens up with like all sorts of lines of code up there that they're checking stuff. So obviously it's not trailer ready footage or anything like that. So you got to take it with a grain of salt. But yeah, I don't know if it really changed my excitement much for the game. I mean, I am very excited for it, but I think I am still way more excited for that trailer that they put out, which is like, here's the story hook, here's the setting from our perspective.
Great
with
song.
The
they always pick a great song. Yeah,
a great song, and then just like showing off like some of those new gameplay things. Like you mentioned the inside of the cars, but I'm sure there's going to be a ton of other new things as well. And then when we find out how it integrates with GTA Online, that'll be exciting to find out too. So yeah, I'm curious to see the fallout of this, but it sounds like from that statement that they put out that they don't seem to be too bothered. Now, I think that they could just be putting on a strong, happy face, but maybe they're all freaking out on the inside, which I'm sure they probably are to some extent.
Yeah.
So yeah, I hope this doesn't harm the team in any like meaningful way, and they're able to keep going. And yeah, I think Rockstar is just on that another level for me, where I don't know. I think they're almost immune to something like this, like being a detractor. Like this is not gonna. No one person's like not going to buy the game because of this. That was already going to. Yeah.
And I still think even before this game was still like a 2024, the earliest 2025. Like I think we still had a few more years to go on it, and that's where it's like by that time the noise will be gone, and at that time it'll just be one people will forget about, but also there'll just be tons of people that will have no idea. Majority of people that buy this game, if it were to sell even just similar to GTA 5, not break the records, but sell similar. There's the majority of people will never heard about this. You'll tell them, oh, really? And that will mean nothing to them because there's so many people that GTA, I say, is that is the 2 to 3 games of, it's like movies. There's certain movies, certain games that you have those people that only buy 2 to 3 games a year. GTA is one of those games when it comes out. And that's one of those games that the second it's out, people will add it to their Christmas list, whatever their birthday list, and they will get it. And that's the only game they may play that year. It's just, I bought Grand Theft Auto. And the rest of the year, my PlayStation's a Blu-ray player, So, I guess for me, I guess why I just got more excited too is because I just keep putting it off. Like, I don't want to get hyped for GTA 6 because I just think, it's a long ways away. But the actual seeing footage, I was like, man, like I always knew it was a real thing. I knew they were making it, but it's like it's there. And for me, like I said, it looked like a tad better than 5, the movement and just like the world around the stuff. So I'm very excited for when that happens. But again, I'm just putting it back in a lockbox of like, I'll get excited when we get that trailer.
Yeah, and I think maybe my final point is, we've seen in the last few years a lot of talent, like in the higher up part of Rockstar, has left the company in recent years. But it seems like the game still has that same ethos. Even like some of the dialogue scenes, it feels very familiar to me. And so I feel like, I mean, those teams are probably so huge. They have so many people in the writers' room that one higher up leaving doesn't, break the game by any means. But it does feel like that same energy, which is a good thing for me. As I love GTA 4 and 5, and even the ones before that I've messed around with are fun too. So,
and good luck to that leaker and not getting caught and having your life just ruined. Because if they ever get this person, Rockstar in the way they are, this person's going to
be
get
brutal.
Yeah, they are going to owe a lot. They're going to do a lot of time. Like it's going to be very, very bad for that person. So I hope they're one of the best hackers out there and they can keep that identity. Because if not,
yeah. Okay, moving along then, Deathloop recently celebrated its 1-year anniversary. It came out, I think it was September 14th or 15th of 2021, which of course was the game of the year last year, according to me. So there's been some speculation because Xbox, like right after their showcase in June, they posted a screenshot on their social media that was like, here's everything that's coming to our platform for the rest of the year, just kind of like a recap of their showcase. And on that image, it showed Deathloop on there. But of course, they didn't talk about that in their showcase at all. So at that point, it was kind of like, okay, well, it's probably the case that PlayStation's exclusivity was a 1-year thing. And it probably involves a marketing thing, so they can't like promote, no one else could promote the game. But yeah, it seems like that is exactly what happened 1 year later. And Deathloop is ready to hit Xbox, and of course Game Pass, because Arcane is owned by Microsoft. So yeah, it's the day this episode's dropping, September 20th. Game Pass is over there on Xbox. I actually did not check if it's Xbox One. That's an interesting. Do you want to maybe try and Google that for me real quick, see if you can find that? But definitely coming to at least Series X. I asked that because it was a PS5 exclusive, right? It wasn't on PS4, so I'm curious what they're doing there. But PC as well, which it already was, but now it's coming to PC Game Pass. And along with it comes the Golden Loop update, which has a plethora of things that we'll break down in just a minute here.
So their main page, like the full-on Xbox.com, says Deathloop available 20th, Games Pass, coming soon to Games Pass, Series X/S, console, and PC.
Okay, so maybe not Xbox One then.
Yeah, I'm looking for
that would
right
make sense
now.
to me.
It says optimized for Series Xbox Series X and S each year. Yeah, I'm just trying to see if it says anything about Xbox One.
Yeah, they probably would have been. It probably would have been right there next to that console if it was available. So.
One trinket. And I searched the word one, but the only thing that comes up is one trinket. So I don't
talk
think
about
it
that
is.
trinket.
Yeah. So no, I don't think it is.
Okay. And then alongside with this, it is also coming to the PlayStation Plus game catalog. I think it like now as well.
Oh. Okay.
I don't know exactly what that means, and I couldn't find out like what tier that is. Do you know what the game catalog is? That a specific thing to you?
I think isn't that their sort of PlayStation?
Is that like
premium?
those 20 games that were like you can just play these? Yeah. Okay.
I think
so maybe Deathloop is one of them. So now whether or not, I mean, it's more coming over Xbox now, but still it's even more accessible on PlayStation. So before we break down the update part of it, what does this do for you, Travis? I know you've been excited for this game, but couldn't really justify the full price for it. Now that you have the option to play it for quote unquote free, are you going to be jumping in there? Are you going to be doing some looping?
Yeah, so the last thing too, I found platforms again. It just says Xbox Series X and S, and then Windows 10 and 11 PC. So it's not listed.
So I think current gen only.
So yeah, no, I've been waiting. I messaged you about this day because I saw Xbox tweet about it, and again, it was this. It's just like life, where it came out at a time I was planning on. I can't remember what they announced at the time, and it just went on the back burner. And then by the time it was out of the conversation, like Elden Ring was coming up, and times where I thought, oh, I could have got it. You know, I just same thing. What I try to do nowadays is if I'm buying a game, I want to make sure I have time to play it. Same thing like the rest of the game. I didn't get that till months later because I just didn't have the time then. But this is, once I knew it's coming to Xbox, I knew, okay, it's going to be on Games Pass, and that's easy because now, like, very likely what I'm going to be doing tomorrow, I'm going to download it, and even if I just get in a level or a little play time, at least I can go, okay, I've played some of it, I haven't, now I could return back to it another time, where before I didn't want to spend that money and then just play it for a little bit and be gone. But I'm very excited because I've always heard you guys praise them so much, but this was the first one that, maybe not the first one, because I did really want to get to Prey, and I've still never got to Prey. I probably should do that soon at some point.
Please do, yeah.
Yeah, I love the atmosphere of that world, so maybe I'll have to jump into them both here. But with this is the one that I really like. Okay, I was very close to getting day one, so I'm very excited. I think it's great for the audience. Obviously, Xbox people haven't, unless they have played it, but lots of people haven't played this game. So I think you're going to see a huge resurgence of people talking about it in the next month or so, of people that are like myself getting their hands on it for the first time. I think on Games Pass is great because you'll have people like a Kirkland, like a Taylor, same thing, that would try it, or anybody else. So I'm looking very forward to this, and it's almost sooner than I thought, because I know it would be a year, but I thought it might be a little longer because we never got that year put out. Lots of times we always hear that it's a 1 year time exclusive, but we just heard timed exclusive. So I was almost wondering if it was 2 or a year and a half. I think we can just like
that usually means 1 year. I feel like in this time and place, but you're right, like it's weird that they seem to have something in the contract that you can't say that publicly. Like Xbox can't say that. They can't even say like I don't know, they can't say it's coming to Xbox, but they can't even say like PlayStation has for a year. It is bizarre.
I get the year thing though, because then you would have maybe someone that would have bought it, maybe it's like a scummy move, but still, like, maybe if they knew 2 months later, you know,
it makes sense.
Yeah, it's the same thing like right now, and maybe it sounds bad for me as a moviegoer, but like I didn't love the movie X, but Pearl, the prequel's out right now, and I know the last movie went on VOD like 3 weeks later. I'm like, I can wait the 3 weeks. And I didn't like it too much. I liked it enough. So same thing where if enough people know a year, it's like they maybe would have held off at some point. So I'm looking very forward to downloading this and playing this. At least within this next week, I want to jump in there and play a level or two. So I'm looking very forward to that, and I think a lot of other people will be too. So.
Yeah, I know I'll be jumping back into it because when I played the game, It was on my crappy little laptop. I mean, it's not a crappy laptop, but it was struggling for sure. I was playing the game on the lowest possible settings so I could squeeze out frame rate. I could barely run the game. I had to like go through some backdoor ways to even get the game to boot up, which had me very worried. But I still loved the game even though I was playing it on like worse frame rate and worse visuals. So to play it on my next gen or my current gen Series X is very exciting. And yeah, for me it's like I really want to jump into that multiplayer because yeah, you play as Colt in the main game, but then you're going to get hunted by Juliana. And so I think from the get-go I'm just going to go in there and play as Juliana and hunt down some Colts and have some fun doing that. So that'll be how I engage with the game now, especially because there'll be so many noobs out there that I can just potentially crush. So that'll be fun. And with that comes full crossplay between all the platforms. So that's great as well, especially because I think the multiplayer for this game, since it's kind of a one-on-one situation, I worried that with a game like Deathloop, how long are people going to be playing this for months down the line? But I think having crossplay will mean that you'll probably be able to find games for at least a few years, and that's great. So make sure you get in there now. Cheap plug, me and Kirkland did a 3-hour-long review of this game. So if you want to hear our thoughts on it, there is a very extended conversation there. But let's talk about this Golden Loop update. So this is, I believe, coming to all platforms. And this adds a few new things. One new ability called Fugue, which is like a ranged confusion type ability, which is honestly not that exciting. Like that's not the most crazy skill, especially like considering some of the other ones in the game. That one seems kind of basic, but I'm still excited to check it out. And primarily there was a lot of fun upgrades for all the abilities in the game that add modifiers or change what you can do with it. So I'm curious to see what those ones are for that ability. And then Juliana has an ability where she can replicate like an NPC on the map, so she can fake look like just a no-name character.
That's so
yeah,
cool.
it's really fun and very confusing. The first couple times I encountered it, I'm like, why is this NPC like jumping around all crazy? And they've added some upgrades for that ability. So previously it was just that basic form. I don't know what those new upgrades are, but I'm curious to see what they are. They've added a new weapon, which is they call it the HALP, the HALP prototype. I don't know what that stands for, but it is like a laser weapon. So maybe like hectic advanced laser prototype. There's my prediction.
There you go.
But this is just a very kind of basic laser weapon. But the cool part about it is that like the lasers will bounce off of certain technological things. So like any turret on the map or like a camera, you could bounce the laser off of. And I don't know how if it like auto aims after the bounce or if you have to like really be precise with it. But either way, that'll be fun to check that out once again. See what kind of upgrades they have for that. They're adding a new enemy type, which is the paint bomber, which is essentially like a suicide bomber that I'm sure because it's Deathloop, it's going to be some giant, paint explosion, like kind of Splatoon style. So that'll be fun. They added some new trinkets, which I'm curious to see what those are. And I think maybe the most interesting is that they've added a new extended ending. So in the base game, I think there's 2.5 endings. One of the endings has like 2 slight variations, but then there's kind of 2 different, I guess, a big decision you have at the end of the game. When it comes to this, I feel like it's going to have to be one specifically. The other one, really, I don't know how they'd possibly extend it. But the one that I presume they will have an extended ending for, I'm very excited for because that one, it teased a very cool concept, but then the game just kind of ends. And it doesn't really fully go through with that idea. So I hope it's that one, and I hope they give us even just another minute of more information about the world that's going on there. I'm very, very excited to see that. And I'll have to work to get it because you can't just load your save at the end of the game. You have to do that perfect day again from the get-go. So it'll be another challenge for me to go do. But yeah, I mean, I know you haven't played the base game, of course, but do any of these updates sound particularly intriguing to you? Anything stand out?
Well, some of them, just like the NPC thing, that's just really cool. But like, I didn't even know about most of the stuff. I had heard about it later on, but I guess today was the reminder of just even the online stuff, but even just all these powers and whatnot, because I just thought this base game of, this adventure between the 2 characters and whatnot. So it's cool that it sounds like all this stuff is added on later on. The extended ending, that's something that's very interesting thing to do. I think it's smart to do it too right now it's coming to Xbox and people would be playing it again or for the first time because like yourself, you can jump in. So I think that all just sounds like very cool quality of life stuff, and it's good to see that they're taking care of it. And then also I imagine I thought it sold well, like you thought it did and sold well enough that there probably is sequel potential, I imagine, right, with this concept.
I think it did pretty well. I know it did.
I know it won tons of
well.
game awards and stuff.
Yeah, it did really well critically. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like they really could just move on to like a new IP because they're really into doing that right now.
True.
And I'm really curious what a Deathloop sequel would look like. I almost feel like they would have to take that concept and make a new game with it. So it's like almost like an anthology. I feel like that's really
or
the
new
only way they could
characters,
do it based with how the game ends and like just the loop mechanic. But I would be really curious to see it. I kind of more anticipate that maybe they would add a DLC. So it's like, okay, take that game's core mechanics and make like a smaller adventure with it. That's kind of what I've expected. So obviously this is DLC, but it's not in that same way where in the past Arcane has done huge DLC things. Like Prey had a roguelike looping DLC a lot like this actually. And then Dishonored had like big story updates that were new campaigns. So that's the thing. Like Deathloop's structure I think is a bit different, that I don't see a direct sequel, and I also don't know exactly what they do for a DLC. So this might honestly be it, and then I could see that studio moving on to whatever their next project is. And then of course we got Redfall from the other Arcane studio next year. So I don't know. I would love to see it, and I would just be so curious because like something like Dishonored, it's very like you can just easily envision all these different ways they could make a sequel, and then they did, and they made 2 sequels. But yeah, for this one, I think it's less obvious, which is both intriguing and makes you question. Yeah, so I'll be definitely checking this out. I'm very excited for it. And yeah, let's move on to the next thing, which is Back to Midnight Suns. I feel like this comes up all the time, which I'm very happy about, and we know that it's coming out this year, of course. Just a couple things that I wanted to bring up here. One of these things is kind of new. One of them maybe not new, but new to me. First is that the Xbox One and PS4 versions of the game have actually been they are continued to be delayed until next year, 2023, and they don't have a specific date. It's not like, okay, in February you're getting it. They just don't know. So I guess they're gonna try and my guess is that it's probably because they're struggling to run correctly, like they're having issues. So hopefully they can figure that out quickly. But just kind of a heads up for anyone who doesn't have the next gen yet, or you don't have a good PC, you might have to wait for the game. So that's unfortunate. Me and you obviously are not affected by this, but yeah, you think they'd potentially just cancel that version?
We've seen it a couple times already now, right? That happened with Gotham Knights, remember? And that happened with...
That's true, yeah.
I guess it didn't happen with Cyberpunk, but lots of people argued it probably should have happened.
It kind of did. I mean, the new DLC is not coming to the old gen. So they the base game is, but now you can't get the DLC. So that's kind of a weird one.
I feel like it's happened just a few times, but usually what happens after a few times, it becomes a lot of times. And I'm not going to fully predict that until Trash told you on there, but I just feel like that sounds like a very similar pattern we heard, because Gotham Knights is the same thing. Oh yeah, it's going to come out at some point, and then we're just going to get rid of it. So we'll see. Obviously, it's Marvel. They probably want to get as much play and money as possible, but at the same time, if it's just going to be such a hassle and cost more money to actually do this, would it be worth it? I don't know. So
yeah, I guess it kind of surprises me just when I see gameplay of it. Obviously turn-based makes it so it's less frantic necessarily, and I mean it looks good, don't get me wrong, but I guess I wouldn't see it as like one of those games that is just pushing your hardware to the limit, and needs to get delayed. But of course there's always a lot more going on under the hood.
How long we've been, what is this, how long has these new consoles been out? Was it 2019 or 2020?
We're going to be hitting 2 years here in a month or two, I guess. November is when they came out, right?
Yeah, I'm still surprised how much they're all still getting supported right now, the new ones. I know lots of them have these big bases, but I imagine year 3, maximum year 4, you're going to have to start seeing these big games kind of just say goodbye to that era. I just feel like it's held on a little longer.
I mean, I think God of War will be that quote-unquote swan song for the PS4.
That's fair.
And in terms of Sony's first party, at least, maybe some of those smaller studios, like Pixel Opus and things like that, maybe they release some games still. But yeah, I think that God of War might be the last one. And I agree. Yeah, Xbox, I think we'll still see quite a few on Xbox, but it's only because they have so many studios making so many different kinds of games that I think they have some smaller titles like a Grounded, or Obsidian has Pentiment, like things like that. No reason not to go to Xbox One. But even then, like, just not tons of Xbox Ones out in the open. I mean, there is a lot, but not tons and tons that, eventually they'll just maybe not see it as worth it. But I also think that with the Game Pass model, they want to support that old console, because then more people will subscribe to Game Pass. So it all works. But the other thing I want to bring up with this, I don't think this is necessarily new, but I just saw this in like an email that Midnight Suns sent me as just like a promotional, like they're advertising, pre-order the game, all this stuff. which is that the game will have a season pass containing 23 premium skins for the base game and 4 post-launch DLC packs, each featuring a new playable character, new missions, new enemies, and additional character skins. So that's fucking awesome to me. Like, that is a lot of content there. I mean, even just having like 23 additional skins for the base game, that means that at least not every character, but most characters will have at least a second or third one, or maybe even more.
Yeah.
So that's pretty exciting. But yeah, I wanted to ask you, I mean, starting with just like just the characters, who do you think we'll see as these 4 new characters that are going to get added?
Well, that's what I'm just pulling up right now. The picture of the roster that has everybody there.
I have the list here. I can write them off quickly.
Give me that. Yeah.
Which is Wolverine, Captain America, Captain Marvel, Iron Man, Doctor Strange, Nico Minoru, which her name's Sister Grimm, right? Is like her superhero name. I should probably get used to that. Magic, Scarlet Witch, Ghost Rider, Blade, Spider-Man, and then the player character, the Hunter. I think that's all the ones we've seen. I doubt we're gonna get any more for the base game. I think they've shown everyone off. I don't know if they're trying to hide anything at this point.
Let's see here. So, did you say Moon Knight at all? Because
Moon Knight is not in that base roster.
We had talked about that, right? Where we thought Moon Knight was going to be in here and everything like that. So I think Moon Knight, I'm not going to say is a given, but very likely. Okay, I got the list.
I think he's, because I think about Ultimate Alliance 3, and that had the Midnight Suns DLC, and that DLC pack had Moon Knight, Punisher, Morbius, and I guess Blade, who would already have been in this game. But yeah, I think out of those 3, I think Moon Knight seems like very likely to me. You know, a show just came out; it's good timing. I don't know about Morbius, and then Punisher. I don't see Punisher happening for some reason. I don't know why. I just don't have that inkling that they want to include Punisher for whatever reason.
It's tough because at the same point you do have like Iron Man, Cap, and Wolverine, and I feel like they're willing to throw in just any character that's popular. So I actually would put Punisher as like a likely. Another one I'd put in is Storm, just because I feel like another just kind of very cool powers, X-Men, stuff like that. And again, these are characters I wouldn't have put in if Captain Marvel wasn't there, but she is, just because like Captain Marvel's not a Midnight Sun, Iron Man's not. So I feel like those 2. I would like a tankier one, like a Hulk. I think that would be good, something like that. And I'm trying to think of so if my rosters, I got I guess I got my 4. I guess it'd be like Hulk, Moon Knight, Punisher, and Storm. The most least likely one I think would be Punisher. And then after that, I'm not sure who. I'm trying to think of
what do you think about Elsa Bloodstone? I think that seems like a pretty solid one. Seems like that character is gaining popularity. Obviously joining the MCU pretty soon here.
Or even Werewolf by Night, too.
Ultimate Alliance.
Yeah,
Werewolf by Night. That could be a good one.
Yeah. No, I like Elsa. That's a good pick as well. She kind of fits like a similar, what was I going to say? Punisher aesthetic too, with guns and everything like that. And Scarlet Witch is confirmed to be playable, right?
Yeah. There's
so many lists that don't have her on there just because
I think she was revealed later, so I think that would be one of them. And I think she is a weird case too, where it sounds like she will be a villain at times.
Yes.
But I'm guessing you'll convert her and be on your team, or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe you start with her and then you lose her, but I think they'd go the opposite.
On your list, did you have the Caretaker?
No.
Because the Caretaker has come up in 2 searches of mine.
Maybe the Caretaker is like at your base, at your home base, like training you up or something like that. Because he's not in that lineup, like that big image that has all the characters together.
He's not. Yeah. So for you though, is this DLC is like the past set something you're going to get right away, or is this based more on what the game's going to be later on? Like, because that's where I am. Where I don't think I'm going to buy. Because if I don't like it, I don't want to spend all that money. But if I do like it, I could see myself getting a season pass.
Yeah, I usually like to wait and see how I feel about the game. I feel like very solid that I'm going to enjoy this game at the very least and want to get these DLC packs just because XCOM making cool tactics games, that's one of my favorite genres. Marvel, I'm super hyped on Marvel right now and love
and this
Ultimate
just looks so
Alliance 3
badass. Like when I'm looking at all the photos, there's always like their costumes and stuff. It just
I like the looks, yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like I will, because even if you get like those 23 skins at launch too, like I definitely want to see all these different costumes and use that and stuff like that. So that kind of excites me too, because I think those costumes are at launch, and then you get like those 4 post-launch things, and the new enemy types, new missions. Like I feel like I'll want to go back for that stuff. So, I mean, maybe the question for me would be like, how long is the game? Because if the base game is super, super long, then I don't know. Like maybe I'll be burnt out and I don't want more. But I will probably pick this up. I would say I don't know how much it is, so of course that's a factor too.
So my question too, as well, is: do you think with those 4 characters, there's a chance any villains from the game could be added in?
Mm,
Because I thought Venom, when I thought we've seen him in the
right.
game, Spider-Man's already there, and I'm taking the very Marvel Ultimate Alliance route because that's what they did the very first game. Is like, oh, you get to play some villains this go around. So I could actually see
Hmm.
one villain character as well, because that to me sells DLC. We've talked about this before. People love playing as the villain, so I feel like
Yeah.
a villain would be a tipping point for some people.
I feel like I feel like they'd go down the route of making Venom like a hidden character you get near the end of the game or something like the base game.
Oh.
I don't know if they go down that route. I feel like people would possibly be salty about that because if each DLC only has one character, it's different, right? Whereas Ultimate
Mhm.
Alliance, since it's a pack of characters, it's kind of like okay, if 1 or 2 were in the base game and they're getting upgraded, that's fine because you'll have a couple of new characters along with them. But since this is going to be, it sounds like split into 4 separate release dates. I think if people were just like, "Oh, Venom, he was in the base game. Like, why is he the one?"
Unless
getting
Venom's
here?"
really cool though, and you're like, hey,
Yeah,
because he's in the base game as like a villain type though, not as like
you're
a
right.
playable.
I know,
guy.
but that could be like maybe when you beat the game, you unlock Venom as a
Yeah, yeah.
bonus character, or like I said, Scarlet Witch. I think she will be a villain, and then you'll convert her to your team, something like that too. So it could be the same thing for Venom in that way.
Is there
Um,
any? If it's not a playable one, is there any villain like off from the side? You'd be like, you know what? I'd like to see that then.
like that we've seen in promotional stuff. Or do you mean
No,
like,
not at all. Just a completely new somebody that
ooh,
would be like you said, if it's not someone from the base
hmm
game, who you put in
yeah,
there.
yeah. I mean, well, you mentioned Storm as an X-Men character. I feel like they have, I guess, Magic Wolverine and Sister Grimm. I think those are X-Men characters, right? At least
Hmm.
Magic and Wolverine are.
Yep.
So I could see them wanting to add one more X-Men character as a DLC. So that could be cool. Like throw
And Scarlet
Magneto
Witch
in there.
technically too.
Yeah, I guess we've seen Sabretooth as a villain, but yeah, like a
Mhm.
Magneto. Who else would be a good villain, like X-Men villain? I don't know if Apocalypse would be a good one.
All the
Like
ones that I'd
Mystique
want.
could be interesting.
Yeah, all the one I
Juggernaut
really
as like a
want.
tanky character
Oh,
could be
I'd love
fun.
Juggernaut would be tons of fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
The one you'll get more affiliated next year when we do the X-Men retro, but I would love Mr. Sinister because he has like a
Okay.
very
I don't know
that
anything
type
about
of
him really.
yeah, that type of look and stuff. He is a cloner that is obsessed with Scott Summers, aka Scott Cyclops' bloodline.
Mhm.
He should there's another good one. Dark Phoenix. That could
Oh,
be
that's a
fun.
good one. That's a really good
Yeah,
one actually. That fits
could
really
work.
well.
Yeah, because then it's not Jean Grey, it's Dark Phoenix. So that I didn't
Yeah.
even think about it, but that's the way to go. My pick, it's like it's a generic one because I feel like we picked this for everything, but I feel like just looking at the aesthetics he fit in here is Doom. I feel like Doom would fit right in this world. He's like this great kind of like
Mhm.
sci-fi / supernatural villain. So I just want to see a Doom armor with this type of Midnight Suns look and everything like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the one I'd be pulling for.
And then I also wonder if since we have a couple of like really Avengers associated characters in there, as you mentioned, Cap,
Yeah.
Iron Man, maybe even Captain Marvel. You don't really associate them with Midnight Suns. So I could see them like adding another one of those characters. I don't know
Mhm.
who would be like one if you're talking about villain. Like I think Loki could actually fit pretty well. That would be
Loki be
interesting.
really good. Yeah.
And I would love to see that move set. But even like a mainline Avengers character, I could see them doing that. You mentioned Hulk. I think that would be a good one.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know if I have any other predictions, but I feel like Moon Knight almost feels like a lock to me. Like I feel really solid on that.
I'm surprised he's not in the base game, so I would agree with you.
Exactly,
But
yeah.
every once in a while, there's those times where, and I thought Waluigi was a lock for getting every fucking character known to man in Smash Bros, but we still skipped
That's
over him.
true.
So he might be the Waluigi of Midnight Suns Moon Knight, just not invited to the party.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Well, yeah, it sounds like I'll be picking this up, so I'll talk about on Sidequest when these new updates are coming out and stuff.
Exciting.
But yeah, I mean, look forward to the review that me and Travis are going to do
Yeah. Only a few more months
in December there. Yeah.
I just want it very sooner, but I can wait.
Mhm. Yeah. And now, of course, for our main topic of today, according to Taylor's thumbnail, is Suikoden.
Did you see?
one-
I looked at the thumbnail though. He
What's
put
that?
like in text, "Embracer, Lord of the Rings." Like he put
Yeah,
it on.
I told him to put Embracer times Lord of the Rings, and
Mm-hmm.
technically he did put the X in there, but it wasn't exactly my creative vision. But
Mhm.
I mean, he's doing this for free for me, so it's
Exactly.
totally okay.
Yeah,
with it.
yeah.
But yeah, Suikoden 1 and 2 remaster,
Mm.
Gate, Ruin, and Dunin Unification Wars. They could have just said remaster and ended there, but no, they decided to add 6 other words in there. We talked about Suikoden recently because we talked on our Out of Mana episode for PlayStation
Uh-huh.
games. I was talking about some classic JRPGs. Suikoden are ones that come up in terms of some people's favorites and stuff. And it's cool that finally it's taken a while, but Suikoden 1 and 2 are finally getting that quote unquote remaster that a lot of these old JRPGs have been getting. Which seems like it's not a remake. To be clear, it is a remaster, right? So it's just updated visuals, maybe some quality of life stuff. I thought this was pretty cool and one a little bit surprising because Konami has been in a weird place. I didn't realize that Suikoden was Konami until this news story hit, and then I realized that. But yeah, Konami's been doing all sorts of weird stuff lately, but I think this is a potential win for them. It seems like a good move to get people in people's good graces. But yeah, we talked about Suikoden recently. I don't know if you checked out the trailer, but definitely not like maybe the Travis genre, but what did you think about this?
I think I saw some of it was like on a I don't know what account tweeted out, like some sort of gaming account that I saw, and I watched like probably about half it. Yeah, something like it's it's usually always Wario, but yeah, I just think this means All-Star 2's confirmed. They heard us and they rushed it out like we got out there. But no, I think like you
we
said,
didn't put the character on our roster though.
No, but they heard us talk about it, so like we gotta give them a reason to put him on there. So yeah, no, I think it's good for that fan base. It's good like the JRPG crowd. That is a huge genre crowd, and they I think jump to and flock to a lot of these games, even just to try them out if they've never tried before. It's like, oh, another one, it just it feels like early 2000s when they just started to make torture porn movies. Like, oh, there's another one that's doing these like really gross movies. Like, not that that's what JRPGs are, but just like they're a very specific type of genre that people like, and most of them like the entirety of that genre. I'm not saying every game is great, but I'm just saying that they will kind of give it a chance because they're like waiting to get hooked for something. So I think it's smart. And yeah, with Konami, I don't know what they've been doing since 2015. Like once Kojima left, everything has just been weird. Am I wrong? Remember 1E3? They showed off that like online Metal Gear game. Did that ever come out?
Oh man, I don't know. I don't even know what you're talking about, to be honest. That's right over my head.
So obviously there was Metal Gear, Phantom Pain. No, which one?
That was 5. Phantom Pain was 5, right?
Is that I always get it mixed up because remember they put out the mini game before and then the game. So yeah, okay, so Phantom Pain. But anyways, they were using like that engine to create like an online game, and it was Kojima, and everyone thought it was really weird. I'm gonna have to look it up because I remember us just watching, be like, really? But yeah, I almost put them together.
Evil
Konami, yeah. Konami. It's been in a very strange place the past few years. So I'm actually kind of surprised this happened.
Yeah. And so this is coming out next year to PS4, Xbox, Switch, and PC. So you can pick your choice there. Of course, you can play it on the next gen versions as well. And yeah, so this is interesting to me. I one thing with these remasters, it's always like I'm always very curious what they choose for the art style because Square Enix is kind of inconsistent where they did like the pixel remasters for Final Fantasy and like it just did not look good. Tactics Ogre recently got announced to get like a remaster. It's coming out I think in a month or two, and that is really weird because they take this pixel art and then they like blur it to make it not look pixel art, and it looks just horrendous, which is too bad because I've always wanted to play that game, but it looks horrible. And then you look at something like Octopath Traveler or Triangle Strategy. Of course, those aren't remakes, but then Live was. And those have like the 2D HD aesthetic, and those look really great. But I also don't want every game to just look like those. I want them to have their own aesthetic. And I think a lot of these companies are still trying to find the right aesthetic. And they've done a kind of weird thing here, but it works for me, which is that the characters are all pixel art, and they look nice. They look up-res, good colors and all that. But then the environments are kind of these 3D textured environments. And I think those don't look quite as good. But somehow that's meshing for me, and it's actually working decently. I wouldn't give it a 10 out of 10 on the visual scale, but like it's okay. I think it's pretty solid. So for me, I think this would entirely depend on price in terms of whether or not I'd be picking up this. That's just like ActRaiser remake or remaster came out in the last couple of years, Castlevania Advanced Collection. I'm like, I really want to play those games, but they're asking way too much for this for my money. So
that's fair.
I hope this is a nice price. It is 2 games in one, so that is a way they could justify a higher value for it. But yeah, did you find any of that Metal Gear info there?
Yes, I just dropped in the private chat. It was called Metal Gear Survive. It was a 2018 survival game. Did not do well. So yeah, it came out. Did not do well sales wise. Right. Yeah, it came out a while back ago.
These are not good reviews.
No, not good sales wise. Not good review wise. Metacritic 54 on PC, 60 on PS4. So
can you still play the game? Do you think, or is it offline now?
I don't know because
I don't see anything about it being offline. So
no, yeah, I was gonna say, and it says survival game. So I think there's pretty much a I think there's probably a base game you could still play and everything like that. It's so funny on Wikipedia when you like go over the world survival game, like the first image they show. I don't know what game that is, but that's pretty funny. But yeah,
I think that's Minecraft.
Is it Minecraft and that's a survival game? Yeah. So
do you not know what Minecraft looks like, Travis?
Not enough. Like, see, not enough. I've never played it once. Never played it once. So,
but still, it's Minecraft. You've seen it in 1,000 Xbox showcases.
But I'm always looking for the characters, and they have those weird faces and the big eyes, you know. But we learned something today.
Mm-hmm. So there you go. That was our main topic. Crush that one in 5 minutes. Moving on. So this is our last news topic of the day, and that is. Just a little bit of news on PSVR2. So we talked about this kind of recently on the Sony State of Play. They showed off a couple games there, and we were like, okay, what are they doing here? Like, they're showing off 2 remasters. Why are they like? This is not very exciting. But now we maybe have some information on why they're showing that, and that's because PSVR2 is not compatible with any PSVR1 games, like by default at least. Of course, there'll be these remasters that make it possible, but just by default, they're saying it's the hardware that you can't. They don't work anymore. So that makes sense why we're seeing that Star Wars game, why we're seeing that Demio game, whatever it is. I don't know if those are PSVR 1 games necessarily. I think one of them was. But it's like, okay, well, those are just... If you have that game, you cannot play it on your PSVR 2. And so that begs a lot of questions. Are they going to make you pay for these games? Like if Beat Saber does a PSVR 2 version, do you have to buy Beat Saber again? I'm going to say you probably do. So what do you think about this?
Yes, absolutely. I kind of understand with PR. I get it a little bit because I feel like with VR there's a lot of tricky stuff that has to go on this, right? The technology and everything like that, and moving forward, I feel like it can't work the same way as a gaming system where hey, you could just plop it. And even PlayStation had problems with that from 3 to 4, right? You can't just plop. But
shouldn't that have
game.
been a priority to like make that already small library carry over?
That's where I was gonna go as far as like. With this thing that's already, to me, I'll say struggling. Maybe that's a nice way to put it, but I'll say struggling to build up hype, build up sales. For this system, I feel like you have to be building upon and not so much like you got to create another bridge and not just destroy the bridge. You know, like that's what I think they're doing is, well, you can't go left, but you can come right now. It's like, but there's all this stuff I left across this bridge, my games, my supplies, my food. But you can get some new stuff here. And I just don't feel like PSVR has had a big enough impact where that community will jump over to VS. There'll be a few, but they'll jump over to VR2 and then rebuy those games once again. And now I think if this is it, if this is the 2 games you can play, I think PSVR 1 had a much better lineup of like having certain games on there at launch and stuff like that. And yeah, I'm still surprised that we got VR2, but my working theory is I remember when we got VR1 and the sales were happening, but it was like within a year, there was rumors like, oh, they're working on a new headset, this and that. I feel like this was
looked it up. Lifetime sales were 5 million units for PSVR, so some information for you there. Which I think, PS4 was at, I want to say 110 million. It might have climbed since then, but like, yeah, that number, that's a very small percentage. It's like 5 million. You can say that's like 5 million. That's a decent amount. But yeah, when you compare it to the PSVR or the PlayStation 4, owner base, that's a small percentage.
So
about
I just
5%.
feel, with these developments, I'm going to be very surprised. One, I don't think PSVR 2 is going to sell 5 million. I don't think it's going to happen.
Ooh, okay.
And I just don't think there'll be enough unless something really good, if it has some really big breakout game we don't see coming. And then I don't think there'll be a 3. It just reminds me of the Vita where they tried and they kept going for a little while. I think this will have a quicker death than the Vita just because if this one doesn't sell, what's the point of building upon it or making another one? And I just see zero hype from both the community and PlayStation itself. Like we've talked about this before, where when they revealed 2, it just felt like it was a press release, a little video, and that was it. They did not make a big deal of this. It just feels like this little thing on the side that it feels like something that's very successful that they could just add on to, like, oh, we're doing this. But it's not that. It's something that you should be pumping up a bit more. And I don't get it. And I think if this is the way they're going to treat it, they should just cut their losses and go. But
yeah,
VR2, baby.
Yeah, I think in some ways, I mean, I'm just surprised. I just think it's such a bad decision, but I'm not surprised in the way that, I mean, just look at what Jim Ryan says, and I feel like I keep bagging on this guy on the podcast, so sorry, I guess. But what is it? His motto is like, "We believe in generations," which is still bullshit because like God of War Ragnarok is coming out 2 years after PS5 has been released, and that's on PS4 still. So what are you talking about? But then he had that quote that was floating around a few months ago when Gran Turismo was coming out. When I forget if it was like an old one that had got delisted or it just like wasn't playable with backwards compatibility or something, and he was like, "Well, why would you want to play why would you want to play the old one?" Like, he just straight up did not have the concept, or I mean, he's probably playing stupid, but he just straight up doesn't understand the concept of people wanting to play older games. Yeah. And that was maybe a different example where it's like a PS1 or 2 version of Gran Turismo, but the same things holds for PSVR, and it just, to me, it seems very obvious that this guy who's in charge of all these decisions doesn't play video games, and that is a problem when you come into things like this, because he doesn't understand what the audience is going to want and what's going to be reasonable and what's just even like a good business decision. Like I don't see how this is a good move for them, and I'll be really curious to see what the rate is of companies that are gonna remaster their games, or maybe if they have to remake them if the games are, if like the hardware is completely different, that they're saying that you can't do it. So maybe they'll have to completely remake. Is that going to be worth it for the price for them? If, as you mentioned, PSVR2's sales aren't huge, like is it going to be worth it for them to remake those versions of the game? So I'll be really curious to see what that is. And I mean, I'm still very curious what the first party support is going to be for PSVR2. To this point, we've seen, of course, the Horizon game, which actually looks very solid, looks like a good Horizon experience. But how many other of those first-party studios are going to be making things, and how long is that going to last? Because that was the death of the Vita, right? Is like they just, the first-party abandoned the console, probably because PlayStation told them to stop making these games, right? They stopped greenlighting them and got them to work on PS4 stuff. So it's too bad. And yeah, man, PSVR 2, I just feel like it's such an uphill battle, and they're doing all the wrong moves. I feel like the only right move is that like the hardware seems decent and like it's wireless now, so that's a good thing. But like in terms of the actual player base and who's going to engage with this and who's going to buy stuff, it seems like they're just making all the wrong decisions to get those people invested in the system. So too bad there. Any final thoughts on this one?
No, I agree 100%, and I'll be more intrigued to see how it does in the coming, whenever the date is.
Yeah. Let's take our last ad break of the day, and we'll come back, and we can get into our main topic, Embracer and Lord of the Rings. We are back. So in the summer, me and Kirkland Patzer did a Lord of the Rings focused Sidequest episode where we just full-on nostalgia dove into that and talked about our favorite games, talked about the games that we hadn't played but still look really cool. We talked about how it's unfortunate that a lot of those old Lord of the Rings games still cannot be played on modern hardware because of licensing issues, mostly. Even if you have a disc for something on your original Xbox, you cannot put that in your Series X. Or you can, but it won't do anything. It'll just explode your console. No, it won't do that. And then in classic SideQuest fashion, we did that episode, and then about a month and a half later, the Lord of the Rings video game rights, along with the board games, theme parks, and TV
movie and TV.
No, movies. Yeah, movies.
Yeah, I think TV. They can do TV shows that are Hobbits.
I think TV was the one exception, wasn't it?
So you're telling me they can't do any TV shows? I'm not saying you're wrong, but if they did that, they can't do any TV shows based on Hobbit and Lord of the Rings?
I don't think so. No. The rights are very weird. They can only do things based on the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings. Yep. Silmarillion, they cannot touch. They're not allowed to touch that, as far as I understand.
Amazon, yeah.
And yeah, like the TV show stuff they did not buy, which is where Rings of Power is not in any fear of not happening. I'm pretty sure that's the case. Feel free to fact check me, but I think that's what's happening. But anyway, so that happened, and we talked about it a bit on SideQuest. But me and Travis here wanted to dive a bit deeper for a couple reasons. One, you really wanted to join that Lord of the Rings episode, but then it didn't end up happening, so you just want to talk about some of your favorites. But then I also want to talk about just like, what should Embracer do with this? We're going to talk about like things we'd like to see them bring back, which I don't know if they can even do legally, but we'll talk about that. I would talk about some of the old games we'd like to see, maybe a sequel, a new version of, and then we're going to do some pitches for just brand new games we'd like to see them tackle. So before we get into those games, I just want to hear like from you. Feel free to share some of your favorite Lord of the Rings games and what you thought about this acquisition. Just go go for it. What do you think about Embracer having the rights to this stuff now?
So I will update on what you were saying. You were right.
Mhm.
It's the TV. This is from Polygon. T rates are another major exclusion per variety. The right to produce a TV series longer than 8 episodes was carved out of the deal of Token Estate made with Saul. Blah blah. Back
So they
in the
could do 7
70s.
episodes, maybe.
Meaning Amazon was able to deal with the estate directly when it bought those rights in 2017, cutting Middle Earth Enterprise out of the deal. Nevertheless, Embrace says they'll have financial interests in Rings of Power as well as in Warner Bros. Upcoming games and blah, blah, blah. So I guess they can just still do TV shows over there at Amazon. Like, I wonder, my pitch is always that's how they should do the next Lord of the Rings is do a TV series up. So there you go. I did not know that. That's very funny. Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like they are just the Illuminati of entertainment right now. Not in the sense of like, oh, bad, just in the sense of we just don't know. They bought a lot of we have some ties to some stuff good, some stuff not so good. And there's a lot of things that I feel like they're working on, a lot of things. And there's a lot of big stuff on the horizon. You got this, obviously. They got their little dirty mitts on my Knights of the Republic remake as well and stuff like that. So there's all these like franchises that I really love that they're currently working on, and this I think would be a great swing because it could come out like one of those projects. Like, you know what, I'm very happy. Let's see what happens. Or it could be the exact opposite. I don't have much faith with this group right now because just on the film side as well, when they go, oh, we're gonna make films that's spread out. Gandalf and Arwen and Aragorn, it's like, okay, like I get what you're doing here. So I feel like with games, it could go to that too, where I hope it's not a quantity or over quality, just like let's start just bastardizing this IP and getting game after game and get some sales and stuff like that. So it's tough for me to say if this has been a good thing or a bad thing. For me, it's going to really start shows when they announce officially what the first game of development is, that'll be it. If it's which I know EA's working on an app game, but if it's some like, I don't know, deck builder app game, that's fine. But I feel like as your first game come out, it should be something of note. And I hope it's not just a bunch of like, oh, we could cash it on people buying stuff on an app and things like that. So I'm 50-50 on it right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've been picking up all sorts of studios along the way too. Like they have Crystal Dynamics now. So that could be a good pairing. Like just throw Crystal Dynamics, Lord of the Rings IP, say do whatever the hell you want. I'd be super curious to see what that is, even though Marvel's Avengers wasn't necessarily the game that everyone wanted it to be. Like I still have a lot of faith in that studio.
It's the same game. Like it's Lord of the Rings. Like very similar.
Reskinned,
yeah, you get the same characters that keep bringing in every once in a while. Like, oh, here comes Aragorn, here comes Legolas. That'd be so funny if it was just a games to service Lord of the Rings game. But that could scare me. They could look at it like, oh, people make a lot of money that way. So and that's not the way for Lord of the Rings, I don't think.
Yeah, and I'm super curious to see what they do. It'll just be, I think we're gonna have to wait a while before we see anything from them. But I am very curious, and yeah, I mean, I guess I wasn't like let down when the acquisition happened, even though I don't have much faith in Embracer. But like Lord of the Rings wasn't really doing much in recent years. Like there's been a couple games. We got Lord of the Rings Gollum on the horizon, which got delayed recently.
Most anticipated game of the year.
Yeah, but I'm down to see it in new hands and see what other stuff we can make with it. And it wasn't even like EA couldn't even really make remasters of all their old games, which most of the games that you know and love from Lord of the Rings were probably made by EA, and they can't even really do anything with that right now because they don't have the rights either. So I'm fine with it. And yeah, I'm curious to see what kind of stuff we get. Let's get into this topic because I think we'll talk about those games that you love from Lord of the Rings history through these. But let's start about talking about what it was an old game. You can do games as well. You can do more than one, whatever you want to do, that you'd really like to see remade, remastered. So not one that you think needs a sequel necessarily, but what is a game that you think just take what it was, give it new graphics, add some new quality of life, maybe some online play. What is something that an old Lord of the Rings game that you think would be a perfect treatment for a remake or remaster?
Well, for the OG fans, I'm going to sound like a broken record because I think I had this in my top 10 video games, but it's Battle for Middle-earth. That's my go-to. Because that was the thing, too. Like, I was so disappointed. That's one of those games, too. When you plug in the Xbox, no, you can't play this. Because I was like, oh, man, we could do that on the stream. I think that just getting that rebuffed, redone, and also for me, the big thing is adding an online element where you could play people in these battles and stuff like that. That was a game that I think I bought or won on the Christmas list just purely because there was a great cutscene trailer. It ended with like a dwarf and an elf like looking at a Balrog and they're about to fight. It's like, fuck, I can't wait to get this game. And then I got it for Christmas. And I remember plugging in. This was like my first real-time strategy game. I was like, this is not exactly what I thought, but much like GMO or Sumo Wrestling, I just got hooked on it. I got hooked on that,
good.
you know, and I'm waiting for another game that I gotta just get back into. I gotta find the right one for me, but it's just kind of like a first love where nothing's ever touched that memory again. But that would be the one as far as I would love if they could remaster. I think it would definitely need some remastering, but the touch-ups, what we could do nowadays with the graphics would be great. So that's my prime numero uno's Battle for Middle Earth, 1 or 2, specifically 2. But
other than graphics and online capabilities, are there any other features you'd want to see added? I mean, maybe it's been a bit since you've played, so it's hard to remember the minutiae
I think
of
just
mechanics and stuff.
Scope of the battles you make a little bit bigger because I feel like the amount of people you
Stronger
could add
hardware to get more units on the map.
Yes, I think it was good, but it always would seem like a little like smaller, and it was a game that I think primarily mostly people played on PC, but it would have one of those where you have this big map and there's lots of I gotta play this game. You'd have like this huge
I really want
map
to play it too
and stuff. I like I said, even if I gotta bring it for the stream and some of my busts like Xbox 360 or something, because I'd love to just see people take turns and play this game. But it's this big map, but then when you gotta get to the other side, if you got a base really under attack, oh my god, you gotta get over there. But like that had some buffering. Like it would be that thing where you're scrolling across the map like and it's like frozen for a little bit going. So just like quality of life things and just the pure size of it, I think, because that's where it's just like I feel like it would eventually and maybe for PC people they probably didn't have this problem, but for me on console it definitely would chug sometimes. Like there's a lot going on for just this little game, you know.
What were like the factions in that game? Was it just like forces of good and evil, or was it like you picked the elves, you picked the dwarves?
That's what it was. You do the elves, men, dwarves, and then I think there was 2 differences because there was like the purely ones I probably played the most was men, and then this one was just like the ring wraith team because you would
that's
have
cool.
you would get so you would start off.
Would they have like orcs and stuff as well, or
they had I think they for some reason had like goblins because I feel like it was like the orcs and the Uruk-hai were on one team and their like team leader was Saruman, because what you would do is the more things you would destroy or find that you'd build up like your money or credits, whatever it is, and you could go buy a bigger hero and stuff like that. So like with the Nazgul, it was leading up to you buy 1, you buy 2, and then the last one's the Witch King, then you can get the dragon with the Witch King. So like there were just these things you could unlock, but you could buy the Witch King like first off the bat if you want to. You're just gonna have to spend a lot of money for, again, this is just like GMO where you got to spend a lot of money for him because he's very powerful, but at the same point he's powerful, but do you want to send him against a whole army? He could do some damage, but then you could do stuff like cave trolls, different type of archery units, different type of what are the big things that would like they're wood and a big arrow, they shoot like a big hook.
Oh yeah, like a ballista, I guess.
Yeah, ballista. Yeah. So that, but each team, like when you play with the orc ones, they had like a spiked one, all different units and stuff like that. So that's where I think it was men. I'm gonna say orcs. Gonna say Team Sauron, elves and dwarves. I think those were the ones. And with elves, you could get Elrond, Legolas, Arwen, and they were all. You could never play with them separate or like together though. So you'd have to sometimes be Argon fighting Arwen.
Could you get a hobbit? Could you have a hobbit on your team, or were they kind of excluded?
Oh, I feel like there was like a team of
maybe
hobbits.
Like a Shire map or something. That's how they included them or something.
I feel like no, because there's one that has Gandalf, and maybe they put them with the men as like you could buy them as like 4 together, but they weren't that strong. It was just that they were a little unit. But I feel like I remember seeing pictures of the cast like doing like some sort of video game look and everything like that. But
that's amazing.
Yeah.
I love that pick. I know I've been itching to play that game, but as we talked about in that episode, like you go on Steam, you search Lord of the Rings, it's a fucking ghost town. There's like nothing there, even though that game should be available for purchase right now, especially with Rings of Power happening. Oh, people would be buying that left, right, and center.
Oh, yeah.
My game that I'd like to see remade or remastered, I think a remaster is what I'd ask for this one, is a game that actually me and Kirkland did not talk about. But we talked about this game called Lord of the Rings: The Third Age, which was like the Game Boy Advance version was like a tactics game, turn-based tactics, kind of Fire Emblem-esque. I've since purchased that game at the game store. I've been playing that, which is fun. But then I found out that on the PSP...
Oh, I remember this game.
Which one are you looking at?
The Lord of the Rings: The Third Age?
Yeah, so the console version was like a turn-based turn-based like combat system and stuff.
Oh yeah, no,
But sorry, that's not the one I'm talking about though. That's not the game I'm
No?
building up towards. But we can talk about that
Okay.
one later. The one I want to see is that on the I think it was the PSP, they released Lord of the Rings Tactics. That was the name of the game,
Really?
and that was like more like take Fire Emblem, like the exact gameplay there. Take your Midnight Suns even, and just like put the Lord of the Rings skin on it, and it's like the setting
these
of
graphics.
yeah,
Oh,
exactly. And
man.
not stood up the best, but like that is more
Oh.
what I want because it's 3D graphics, whereas the GBA one is like 2D and it's kind of that isometric. But like I saw a video where like these maps are very consistent to like set pieces in the movies where there's the scene when Frodo's like giving the ring to Aragorn at the end of Fellowship, and then he closes his hand and that big battle ensues, and there's like that kind of staircase and the stone structure there. Like that whole set piece is recreated, and I would just love to have that in a tactics version where I can strategize. Okay, I'm gonna stand on the second step of the stairs, have my other units here. So I really want like a Lord of the Rings tactics game, and I think I'll just take that one because I'll just assume that it has the story of the trilogy. I don't know exactly what it is. I haven't played it, of course, but I really, really want that. And that one's like, stuck on PSP or Vita, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I do not have access to it, and it's never been on anything else. So that's just lost to time as far as I'm concerned. But I really, really want to play that game.
I remember this cover because it's Gandalf on one side, Saruman on the other. I remember this. Like that's how the Lord of the Rings games. Because when you're also shouting out the last one there, the Third Age, that cover of them like facing down the Balrog. I just remember like the second I saw it cover, it took me right back. But oh yeah, these.
Man,
would
I
all be
love the
great.
maps in this game. Like I
yeah.
really want to play tactics with these maps. It looks great.
Yeah, even if you weren't to like obviously they probably won't be able to do this, but if you were to play these games like a remake tactics, but you couldn't play it as those same actors' likeness, like just change it. Like remember they did that with the GoldenEye remake for Wii. They changed it to Daniel Craig from, and yeah, they changed everything, but not everything, and it was really weird. It was like Daniel Craig and the Pierce Bronson era, and you're like, this is odd. Like this doesn't fit. But you could do that technically if there was like some sort of licensing issue. But that would be great. I'd be so down for that.
Yeah, and this one, it's hard to say remaster remake territory just because I obviously have not played the game. It didn't necessarily get the best reviews, so I think just like okay, take a look at those mechanics again, refine it, just copy more stuff from Midnight Suns and Fire Emblem and XCOM, those kind of games, and really get like narrow down those tactics gameplay. But just having like usually a Fire Emblem map you have between like 9 to 12 characters. That's perfect for the Fellowship. Have all those characters. Maybe the hobbits have like more movement. Frodo can go invisible and sneak around. Gandalf has like these AoE magic abilities. Legolas has got your ranged combat. Like, Gimli can like taunt people and like bring enemies to come fight him. I just want that so bad. So I'd love to see that game brought back, whether it's a remake, whether it's remaster, whatever it is. I will take it because I just really want to try it as it exists now.
I was looking at the Third Age. Most praised it for its graphics, which is great and stuff, but found the storyline and character development to be weak. But you know what? Because I got to look at Amazon. I might have to look in the stream for this one. And also because like it's weird. I always looked at the Third Age cover. Can you pull it up on Google right now?
Sure.
Tell me who the guy. There's clearly like a Legolas in the middle. You got Gandalf, you got Gimli, you got the Balrog. Who's the guy on the very, very left? He's in armor. He's holding a sword and shield. Like,
let me see.
It's some man character, but it's
You're right. Yeah.
It doesn't look like Boromir. It doesn't look like it. Mostly actually looks like a Isildur. Like when he's gonna get.
Oh, it very well could be, which is weird because it's the Third Age, so Isildur is long gone.
That's right. Like this is something like, and why wouldn't you? Aragorn's in the game. Why
Wait, so sorry, it's Gimli. We got Gandalf. Is that Legolas?
I didn't think so now because it looks.
It almost
like,
could be Eowyn or something.
It looks like a female. It is a female. When you I got it up close now. It is a female, but she has blonde hair, so it's some sort of female elf. And then the guy that looks like the Isildur when you zoom in looks very scared. Actually, he's pretty frightened. But he's facing a Balrog.
That's so weird. I mean, is that supposed to be Aragorn in like his king armor?
Maybe.
He never uses a shield like that though, so that would be kind of an odd choice.
Oh,
maybe it's Faramir. Could be a Faramir in his
Faramir.
Osgiliath armor or something.
How much do you think this game's going for? Like on Amazon, if I put this in the Third Age right now, it has to be going for a lot, right?
No, I don't think so. Not these licensed games. I don't think are too much. I mean, I got the GBA version for like $10, I think, and I think the console versions were like maybe 20, 30 or something like that.
The official guide is going for $55.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think you can find it for cheaper.
I can't even find it on Amazon.
Let me look at my local game store. I'm gonna search Third Age here. $15 on PS2, $20 on Xbox original. That's not bad.
We might have to make a GV purchase here for November because I think that'd be.
What are we gonna play it on though? Because you can't put that on Series X.
But no, which ones is it showing up for you there?
I got PS2 or Xbox original.
Xbox original.
Yeah, so maybe it runs on your 360. It probably would run on the 360, maybe.
I do have an original somewhere. Is it not on GameCube? It was on GameCube, but they don't have it there for GameCube.
Not at my store, no.
Okay,
yeah.
we'll do some digging. We'll do some digging.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, cool game. Yeah, glad you shout those out.
I know there's a lot of these old games that look super cool that are just lost to time.
Yeah.
Speaking of, do you have any other remake remaster territory games that you had on your list, or
no?
Or do you want to talk about it like a sequel now?
I have one that would be similar to one I'd want to pitch to do, but I feel like I wouldn't want it to be a remake remaster. I feel like you don't almost have to do like a ground up. So I'll save that for when we get to some like new games and stuff like that.
So talking then about what is an old game that you would like to see have a sequel. So take that original vision, that original gameplay, but whether it's add a new story in there, whether it's just refine those mechanics, what would you like to see for that?
I think something that could have had a shot and it just didn't pick up, but it is a GeekVerse Gauntlet classic, because I always say it's one of the best matches I've ever seen in my life was Clinton and Briggs versus Kirkland and Saris. That's when their team formed. And man, it's Lord of the Rings Conquest, and it's pretty much, if you don't know what it is, it's Star Wars Battlefront, but Lord of the Rings style. I really liked it because it also gave us a great story mode of like, what if Sauron got the ring back, which was very fun, and you actually got to play as Sauron in some missions, stuff like that.
That was the thing with Lord of the Rings games. A lot of them had the ability to play as the forces of evil, which I think for games definitely a rarity you can do that. So I think that was something that Lord of the Rings games usually got right, is they would usually give you that option, which is cool.
100%. To me, it was very comparable when we talk about Smash or comic book stuff, where Lord of the Rings just has a roster of bad guys who you want to play. The Nazgul, Sauron.
Very iconic, yeah.
You know, Yurts, the Urukai or whatever. Lurtz, yeah. Like even Gollum nowadays, he's getting his own game. So to me, and I really enjoy the game. I loved the game for what it was, but even for myself, I got, okay, there was something missing, and sometimes the combat didn't feel the greatest. It felt very rigid. It just felt like even Battlefront, which is not like the most amazing game, even felt like a lot more fluid than those. So that's what I would love, is something in the vein of that. I think in this one it'd be a sequel, but maybe you go into the past, because almost like something like Rings of Power, talk about like hit that era, because I think once you did the whole, oh, what if Sauron got the ring, you don't want to really redo that. So I think Conquest, given the right hands, do I think it would happen? No, but you could squeeze a great game out there, I think, especially with online play nowadays. Like I think there's something there. It was like a diamond in the rough, but it just needed a few more passovers, I think.
Yeah, I love that game too, and you're right, it has a very storied history in the Gauntlet already, so I'd love to see it. And yeah, I mean, you're right about, I feel like I never played the story mode, because I would always I never actually owned the game, so I would just play like co-op with friends who owned the game. So like I don't know, I can't comment on that, but even just taking that core gameplay, adding in some new locations or remastering them, making them better. You're right, fixing the gameplay. I think the game is kind of unbalanced at times too. At least I remember that being the case when I had to fight Ruben.
It can change really fast.
I just got screwed over, and I feel like there's absolutely nothing I could do about it. Not to complain about that again. But yeah, like adding in those Rings of Power characters I think could be really cool, and some of those locations could be really fun as some new battlefields. But even, I guess Conquest came out before those Hobbit movies. I don't love those, but like throw some of those iconic characters. Throw a young Bilbo in there. Throw Bard, the lake dude, in there. You know, like have a map that has Smog. Lake Town I think could be a really cool map, actually. That could be really fun. So
Smog's castle would just be like, I guess it's the dwarves, but still like just that Smog map with the gold and everything like that.
Yeah. So I would just love to see that as well. So I think that I definitely had that one as well in the sequel category, because I mean, I'd be down for a remake, remaster, played in like a modern console would be great. But man, I just love to see them like stretch that idea a bit further as well.
That's all I got because I think that most of the games are now kind of in the newish realm.
Sure.
I pick maybe there's spin-offs of one of like just the idea, but again, ones I think you'd have to almost redo completely and move forward. So
another sequel I'd like to see. This one's pretty straightforward, but it's just another Lego game. Kind of how they did the Skywalker saga. I didn't actually love the Skywalker saga, so I'd want them to go back to basics once again with how the gameplay was of those older Lego games, like, or even like Harry Potter. I felt like was maybe the best Lego game that they've done to date. So like go back to that era, step away from what they did with Star Wars in terms of the structure of it. But once again, like they already have done Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, like they did those two games. But I think bringing those into one, redoing them, because I remember Lord of the Rings, the Return of the King part of the game was definitely rushed, and they didn't clearly have as much time with it as the other two. So like adding in some more quality there, and then like so far I'm really enjoying Rings of Power. Like I'd love to see those turn into the Lego game, get some of those locations. Hasn't been tons of battles yet, but there's already been a few in the first few episodes. But of course we have many seasons coming ahead. But even just those different versions of the characters, along young Galadriel and Elrond, and some of those new guys as well. I'd love to see that as well. And thankfully, those are some of the very few Lord of the Rings games that are still accessible. You can still buy those. Those licenses haven't expired yet. So if you are looking for something Lord of the Rings, that might be one of the only ways you can quench that thirst right now without emulators or whipping out your PS2. But yeah, I'd love to see a fresh Lego game. Did you ever play those Lord of the Rings ones?
no, I never played that one because I think the big thing with that for me, I remember that was like the first game that actually used audio from the movie, which was crazy because before that it was just like the characters talk. I could be wrong because I never played the Pirates one and stuff, but I missed that one. But then I wanted to kind of parlay in the world. So me and Emily got the Hobbit one, and that was not a fun playthrough. And that's why, because I was looking to see, because I remember they like teased the Battle of Five Armies, and I was looking to see if that happened, and no, they canceled.
That's
the
not
DLC.
even in the game. It's just the first two movies.
They're making DLC for it, and they canceled it.
Wow,
so,
that sucks.
So it was reported by London
bad.
Toy Fair in 2014 DLC would be released and covering the events of the film. However, no DLC was released. 1 year later, GameSpot was revealed that despite no actual cancellation of DLC, there were no longer any plans to adapt the film as DLC, nor adapt it into another game. And that was the thing, because it ends on the Smog thing, and especially it ends the same way as Smog, where it's like a cliffhanger. And I feel like they even teased like Battle of Five Armies coming soon. And me and Emily completed.
So is there like Lake Town sequence and stuff? Like, does it go? Okay.
It literally gets down to when Smog's like flying away into Lake Town.
Gotcha.
And so they could compare, but you'd have to finish Battle of Five Armies, which could be something at least new for it. But it definitely was one of the lower tier ones. I think I'm right with you, where kind of the top 3 or 4. I'd say Harry Potter's up there. The original Star Wars Lego's up there. For me, I think still
Did you play the Pirates one? I'm curious on the Pirates
Never
one.
have played the Pirates one, no. Or Indie, I've never played either. I want to. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that for me, probably the best one's still the Marvel superhero ones, not the Avenger ones, but the Marvel ones where they have the huge roster. And the original Lego Batman game too was really, really good. It's super deep, like just villain roster list and great soundtrack. It's just the Elfman score. So, but yeah, the Hobbit was not one I put up there as one of the strongs. That's what it felt like. Lego was starting to teeter off a little bit. Every Lego game used to be a promise, like guaranteed really good game, and then around that era it's like, okay, they're not perfect,
Yeah, it's weird, right? Because they started pumping them out so much. I think that was the thing. They're stretched too thin. And even like things contractual things where they had to tie it to movies at certain points. Like I've talked about how terrible the Incredibles one was, and that's too bad because it was like very much rushed to get in line with Incredibles 2, and then you had to start with the Incredibles 2 story before the first Incredibles. Like, that makes no sense at all, but of course it was tied into that. But then, like, somewhere in that mix is, like, those great Avengers one, or great Marvel ones, I should say, and, like, the Harry Potter ones, which are fantastic. So they've still nailed the good ones, but then they, like, even this year, Skywalker Saga, which I think there was the longest development ever maybe on a Lego game, and it just did not work at all for me. So they're very inconsistent, so I wouldn't necessarily have a lot of faith that this would be great. But I would love to see that whole, even if it's just a Rings of Power one, just a new Rings of Power game, I'd like to see that as well. So that's a weird case where I don't know how the rights of things work with like Rings of Power and not being under the same umbrella. And then
Amazon's like, yeah, we'll make it.
Yeah, and then you have like TT Games who makes these games, and they're not part of Embracer. So would they do that as like a licensed thing? I don't know. There's a lot of question marks on it for sure, but it would be interesting if they did make it happen.
Even reading that article of like, the Middle Earth Enterprises like sold the TV rights to Amazon, but I don't know if it's for the show.
It's weird.
It reminds me. I think you've heard us talk about this a little bit, but at one point the Friday 13th series got divided to someone owns Friday 13th the series, but then another person owns Jason 4. He's the character.
Right.
So it's very strange. Of like, how did this ever happen?
up.
How did this get like? How did this not early on nip this in the bud? Like, okay, can we make some money or a deal? Same thing. Like, how are you not selling this all to one company? You know, it's like, and I would understand if they bought it and say, hey, we don't want the TV, but that's not what it was. It was like they couldn't buy the TV rights. So it's just weird stuff. Because like you said, who makes Rings of Power? Could technically Amazon in their game studio, could they technically make a Rings of Power game? I would say no, but I don't know for sure. So
yeah, it's weird stuff. Moving along then, let's talk about some of these pitches. So we're just going to talk about maybe some dream games from Lord of the Rings. Sounds like you have a few, so I'll let you go first. What is one of them that's a dream game for you?
do you want the safe pick first or the crazy pick first?
You know what? Give me the crazy pick first.
So, because I was just thinking about different things, and I feel like this is a game that would come out. It's similar to the Gollum thing, where you go like, "Why are they doing this?" But I'd love to see them give it to a studio, just try to cheer it. I want them to sit someone down and say, "We want you to make a full first-person shooter, but just with bows, just with bows." That's what I would like, because I would love to see, and maybe it'd be on the smaller side.
Is it elves versus goblins? Is it elves versus elves, like practicing?
I think you could choose. Like you'd choose the like. Yeah, I think the story would be elves versus the goblins, but I would want like an actual like online mode. Like I'm not saying like Warzone, but I would say like a mode where you are shooting, and because I feel like there's something the way Skull and Bones ended up becoming a meme game. There's Skull and Bones. There was like something there. It's like this could have been great, but you guys went a different direction. I think someone with the Lord of the Rings aesthetic, people would get a kick out of like archery, like. Oh, the whole game's you're just shooting arrows. Like that's what you're doing, right? And you have different arrows. Like I think done right, if you spend the right amount of money, it doesn't have to be the most crazy graphic thing, but a first person shooter with just nothing but bow and arrows. I want to see it. I want to see what you could do with the madness of it. Because I feel like it'd be one of those games, it would get announced, everyone would be like, what? Like this is a crazy idea, but everyone would want to try it. That's what I feel. Now they'd have to make it good. That's the catch.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I just Googled it to see if there was any first person game, because like there's a lot of Lord of the Rings games that exist, as we talked about in that summer episode, like over 50 games. I don't know if any of them have ever been first person before, though, right? Of course, they want to show it third person so you can see your character that you're playing as, or it's a top-down view, things like that. But yeah, I don't know if a first person thing has been done, so that might be a good one to go for.
And that's what I get, because like there's not many things you could do first person with this. Like maybe you can make a game where like Frodo's in the ring world and he's like running around, but there's only so much you could do. Like that'd be a good level maybe, but as far as first person, like, only thing you do is bows. That I don't know if I want to add them. Like, I would want to see that. It just because imagine you get this cool cinematic trailer and then it would like zoom in the gameplay. It's like, oh, it's just the bows. Like, and I don't know, it'd probably get memed on quite a bit. But I would love to like see a gauntlet match, like two people. Like it's a bow and arrow Call of Duty thing, You're just like, and you only got certain shots. I don't know how it would work, but I want to see.
Why don't you want there to be like a sword in this game too? Why is it only bows that stands out to you?
Because I feel like that is more. I think you could have a melee attack of using your bow, like hitting, But like I just want to
strangle someone with the string. Yeah.
I just want to be about pure archery, though. That's what I want to be about, So
I respect that. I respect that. That is a crazy idea. I don't know. I would not predict that one to happen.
No,
bit too
not
niche.
At all. Yeah.
What was your quote unquote safe pick?
The safe one to me is taking a similar aesthetic to like Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War, and kind of what I've always pitched of how you do the movies to a TV show. Do 3 games that is just like Fellowship, Two Towers, Return of the King. Very much what we got with those made-to-movie games. But with that one, I don't think they could do the same thing like, oh, in these ones you play as the Hobbits. I think they might have to... Like, I would like that. Like, then that would just go in that realm of remake those games. But I feel like they would pick, like, you're going to be Aragorn for the trilogy, and you're going to play from Fellowship all the way Return the King. And if it's not Aragorn, if it's Gandalf, if it's Frodo...
There is a game on the Nintendo DS, which I also purchased this, but I haven't bought it yet, called Lord of the Rings Aragorn's Quest.
Oh, I remember that one. Yeah,
I don't know
if the cover he's really zoomed in. He's like,
it's very silly looking, very DS era. I don't know if you're playing through the events of the like trilogy or if it's like before. I think the game is like narrated by Sam though. Like he's like telling his kids the story of Aragorn or something. But that is different than what you're saying. I just wanted to throw it out there.
No, that's a good toss. And that's where it's tough because like I get those original games. They were smart because you can't tell the whole Lord of the Rings story with just one character, right? So that's
Mhm.
where like my pitch is either then yeah, you do kind of similar, you make similar things, or I don't think you could pull this off, but now I'm getting super crazy with my easy save prediction is you make like a Fellowship series, but like one game is from Aragorn's perspective, and then one game would be like
Mhm.
you play. Now the first game's tough because they're all together, so maybe not that. But with Two Towers, you make a full game or a DLC that's like this is just the Frodo journey, but some sort of whatever it may be, in the vein of what they're running with. I don't even know. Like I like the combat system, but just that third person adventure
Mhm.
game with the original trilogy with the books. I feel like there's something there that has to be done. I feel like that's what they go for. The Juggler, and just a game that's called Fellowship the Ring, I think would get people very excited and stuff like that. And stuff
Mhm.
who you would play as, I don't know. That's a whole can of worms, but something to do
Yeah.
with the original trilogy and a story beat of it. And you can throw in stuff that was from the books that didn't make it in the movies, So
Mhm. Yeah, I love that pitch. I think that'd be a great idea. I think we're removed enough from that trilogy. I mean, it stands the test of time, of course, if people are still thinking about it all the time. But I think
Mhm.
we're far enough away now that you wouldn't have to do that license game thing of
Yeah.
like copying it beat for beat. You would obviously want to hit those same big moments. But I think you could still have a lot more freedom
Mhm.
nowadays, and you could take more creative liberties, and people would be okay with that. I think so. I think that's a great idea, and I think even just legally with what Embracer has the rights to, like they could not use the likeness of those
Yeah.
characters. They couldn't use that music. So I think you'd naturally have to deviate so that
Mhm.
it's not people comparing it. So I think that would actually pair off nicely, and that would be a great idea. And yeah, I'd be curious to see how they would do tackling the multiple characters, whether it's like,
Yeah.
okay, you're playing through this section now, but I think you made a good point of, yeah, I would love a game where you're just playing Aragorn's story. And, if we looked at that, it's like, okay, what would like Legolas's story be in like the Two Towers? Like, is that enough for a game right
Mhm.
there? But I think you could pick a certain character and have a nice, like, even add a side quest, like new side quests for them, or like
Yes.
I'd even be fine if you go in prequel territory and show what they were doing
Mhm.
before the quest and show what
Oh
they're
yeah.
doing after. Like, whatever, make some fanfic. Tell me what Aragorn did 50 years after he became king. I'm
How to
totally down
meet
to see what they
Aron?
do.
How to meet Aron? Arwen? Like
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
what you
for
could do
sure.
as a prequel and stuff. And yeah, it's interesting too because I feel like with that original game of the Fellowship, if you were to do that, I think they could also have tons of fun with the voice casting. You get a good
Hmm.
lineup of like, oh, who's playing this? Like what they try to do with Avengers, try to like build up that hype.
Sure,
Like
yeah.
try and do that again, but with Fellowship and Embracer
There you
could
go.
just throw a bunch
Get
of money.
Crystal Dynamics on it. They can make this game.
There you go. They're
Yeah.
gonna do it. Yeah.
My pitch is a game definitely down my road, and I don't know if this is a game that would be for everyone,
Okay.
but I really want a game that is almost like a travel simulator within the Lord of the Rings universe. So I'm thinking it's almost like a D&D campaign sort of thing,
Okay.
almost like Oregon Trail a little bit, or like Wildermyth, which came out last year, which is kind of like a D&D simulator where you have a world map and you have your party that's gaining or losing members if you die, and you're kind of moving them along the map, and they're like little tiles. Like, it's not like an open world, but you're moving them to key locations. There'll be random encounters along the way. You'll go to points of interest and stuff will happen there. And then when in the actual combat part of it, it is like turn-based tactics. I'm not attached to that turn-based tactics thing, though of course I pitched that. I want that remaster, so I'd be down for that. But even if it's like just a top-down kind of RTS, mini RTS with little battles, I want this game to be a lot about the simulation and mostly about the strategizing of things, and not just the gameplay, like the combat, but like making your party, making that fellowship of your game in terms of like, okay, I'm going to add a couple hobbits on my team because they're good at stealth and they're good at foraging.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, I'm gonna add, maybe you can get a wizard, and obviously they're just like all powerful. Or I want to put a dwarf on there because they have like good tanking abilities, or get that elf because they have like longer vision, so they can detect enemies, and then I have like a ranged guy on my team. So something like that, and even like in D&D, you like pick the order, like when you're traveling, you pick who's standing where in the lineup. I really want that for this game, where you plan out where exactly everyone is in that fellowship. Where is everyone standing to optimize that if you get caught in combat, but who's going to have the best eyes to keep track of where you're going, stuff like that. I have a couple more thoughts on this, but what do you think about the general pitch? Does that sound like something that would interest you?
I would want that because I think just the concept of the fellowship, and also you're not like doing the same thing where it's like, oh, picking from the 9, but just the idea of, hey, it was putting together a bunch of random people with different skills. I think
Get
it
a little
lends to
character
that.
creator in there.
Yes.
Make an elf, make a dwarf could be fun.
I think it lends to that where that's a game where you could do in the Lord of the Rings world, but not actually have to have a single character. Maybe just Gandalf that puts some people on a quest. Like even the Hobbit is just a bunch of random like dwarves and a hobbit and a wizard
Yep,
thrown together, you know? So that's what I like about it is it kind of fits the base of what happens in Lord of the Rings. And I also just want to do that of like when you're pitching, picking these guys because they do this. That I'm all for. So I would be all over something like that. And that's something too where I feel like it's a game that you could, like you made that comparison to Oregon Trail, you wouldn't have to maybe break the budget with that one, right? You could get a smaller team to do that, which I think I'm hoping that's what they do is kind of like the same way we're getting, you know, like a random small John Wick game somewhere like or even like Tron Legacy coming up, like, or it's Tron something else, but that would be fun to get these mini ones as well.
Yeah, and a couple other things. I feel like you could really go into the element, like when you're picking your team and stuff like that. There could be certain things like, you could bring a pony or a horse along who would give you like more movement if you have it for all your party members, or you could just use them to like put things on there, like that sim element of like how much can you really carry at a time. But then you'll come up to situations where you got to go through the mines and the horse can't come with you, so it's like, oh shit, do we go through these mines or do we go around and bring the horse with us? I definitely want this game to have an element where you're setting up your camp, whether that's a certain leg of the travel you got to set up camp and you like are buying new tents and like lanterns and things to make your camp nice and safe and whatnot, and you're like scouting out for different areas. So maybe that's like someone like a Strider ability where he's like, looking out for things, he's tracking, and he has a better eye for like where a safe places to set up camp, things like that. And I think you could touch on things like you could go to Weathertop and that'd be like a fun location, but then they could also go ahead and like create a whole bunch of new places along the way, because I mean, I the thought of like a truly fully open world Lord of the Rings third person game where you can go everywhere and do everything, I don't know if that would work so well, right? Because I feel like you either do it in a Ubisofty kind of way where you have points of interest everywhere and all these things, and I feel like that would take away from just like the scale of Lord of the Rings, where in the movies where it's just they're just running for days at a time and there's nothing of interest, it's just rocks and grass, and that's beautiful. So I don't know if that same ethos would work well for that Lord of the Rings fantasy. So I think this would be a good way of, you can have those travel sequences and you could still have that exploration, but you can still go longer distances and things like that. And then for the actual combat, like I said, could be tactics, could be like just like strategy, could be just turn-based battle. I don't know what it would be necessarily. I think I'm down for whatever, but yeah, there's something about this that sounds like it would really work for me with the traveling aspect, the party aspect. I think that's something in Lord of the Rings that I love so much, but has never really been tackled in a video game that I can think of.
Well, I was gonna say with your, you don't want the Ubisoft method. We just need From Software to get licensed to make one of these games.
That's true.
I would love that if you were a character just in a world and no guiding, just like you run into a Nazgul at any
I'd be down
point
for
or
that.
whatever, But I think it's hard to imagine. So.
And I think, this game works well to have that classic Lord of the Rings thing of you can play as the forces of evil, and they're more destructive, where it's like to set up camp, you're like, destroy this forest or something like that. Maybe you have more numbers, maybe you have more people who are less strong, whereas a human party is going to be like less members that are each more purposeful, that kind of thing. But there you go. There's my pitch. Do you have any other games you wanted to pitch?
Yeah, I got 3 more. 2 that are just
nice.
kind of like a kernel of idea, and then one I would very much like. So the kernel is like, it's something you're describing, which would be similar but not exactly. I wanted a survival game, and the way that I was inspired by this is you'd either be like Gandalf or Arwen, and it's kind of inspired by when Frodo gets stabbed and he's going to turn. Something like that, where I don't actually use it as much, but I know some people do. How The Witcher has like the many, like that potion screen where you can just make a bunch of stuff that I never use. I would want a game where that is actually like vital, and that's where I thought like Arwen or even new character where you are trying to get from point A to point B or get someone from point A to point B, and that it's just like a video game, right? Where Aragorn says to Sam, like, hey, I need this, this, and this to make this potion. Like something to do with that. That's why this one's only like a small idea, but something to do like a survival game and a character that specializes in medicine, magic, that you can do that. And I don't know what you'd be doing in said game, but that was kind of one of my ideas. The other one, which
Love
is
it.
just like an easy cash in, is just doing a Mortal Kombat Soul Calibur like fighting game, right?
Yeah.
Just like because there's a huge amount of rosters. Another game where you don't have to have the likeness of actors. Like I feel like to stand out, you can make really like a fun game, whether it's hobbits, whether it's just like having Sauron on a fighting roster. And this is a game that I'm not even much into that franchise, but because if it was a Lord of the Rings game, I would probably purchase it just for that. Man, it's like, look at this. We're going to have these games. Same thing like Midnight Suns, where I've not played lots of games, but because it's getting me with those characters, okay, I'm willing to give it a try. Same thing with this. I want to have like a recreate that Gandalf and Saruman. And you could make them, I feel like, a bit more kind of over the top characters too, like almost, I don't want to say goofy, but almost like the animated Lord of the Rings movies, where you could have Boromir as the Viking look, because it's just like, and plus you could do tons of costumes. You could do like a almost like Viggo Mortensen. Maybe they can't, but something similar as like the jacket, the look, like what they do with Avengers, right? So, and then my last one would be kind of, I don't know if it's a tycoon game, not necessarily that, but it's almost more like Mario Maker, where I just want like a fortress builder. What inspired me by this was when we did that Nintendo Direct and I saw that Lego builder, and it was just like building up stuff like that.
Right.
I love imagine if you could go to the Shire or Mordor or with the dwarves like Khazad-dûm. Like imagine getting to build your own mines. And like I said, I don't know if it necessarily needs to be a game where it's like you need to water these plants and feed your people. You could do that, but I just want a game where it's like you're just gonna get a bunch of materials and you're just gonna create. And like I said, it's like Mario Maker, where it would just be, at least with that game though, you do get to play it, right? You can play level sets, where it's like this is a very, very niche one, but I still feel like there would
I could see it being like a horde mode kind of thing, like a where you're just defending against hordes of enemy that come in, so you're building up your fortress in that way. And then picking where units, like which units you're going to put where in terms of strategy and stuff. Yeah,
which is close to Middle Earth. So maybe what I would like is in an addendum, if we did remake Middle Earth, is just make like a free play where you could just make a cast. Like no one's gonna destroy you. It's just like you get a map,
smaller scale, right? Instead of a country, it's just like one city or one town or one.
And like I said, imagine a Shire built like creating your own little, peaks and valleys.
I feel like the Shire would have traps everywhere, like hidden doors. And like things like that. Yeah.
Like to me, that's just like a environmental game where you would just put on the music and just sit back, and like if you're making another 2 towers, you're just blaring that like Mount Doom music, like and you're just like, oh, I want this there, and I want a lava moat there and stuff. So that's my one that I would just love to be able to like just make fortresses and landscapes for Lord of the Rings and Middle Earth specifically.
Even to steal that Mario Maker thought of like, okay, you're making a level and then you're putting it up online for people to play. It'd be cool to make that fortress, and then people could download your maps and like, okay, I'm gonna choose to send out like at minute 1, I'm going to send out my fodder orcs, and then at minute 2, I'm going to send in the ballista, I'm going to send up the ladders, and you can have all these different kinds of siege weapons to try and like break through. That would be super cool. I'd really like that. That's a great idea.
Those are my ones. I Embracer Group, call me. I got lots of things I want to see happen. I hope we get a plethora of games in the next few years from them, and they're at least somewhat quality. So.
I mean, I would love the fighting game too. To comment on that one, of course, I'm a platform fighter guy, so I'd like it to be similar to Smash. It sounds like the Lord of the Rings stuff won't be coming to multiverses anymore, which is too bad. It was never announced. It was heavily rumored and leaked and stuff like that. So it sounds like that's not happening anymore, which is too bad. But
we're still getting Gandalf, right?
I don't think so. Nope.
So they're just gone.
We had a screenshot of him, but he was never technically announced, and I just don't think they can do it anymore. It sounds like it's maybe a rights thing. It's too bad. I mean, I could be wrong. I'd love to be proven wrong, but I think if they were going to do it, it seems to be like, okay, Black Adam, they're trying to time that with the movie. Yep. I feel like you would have rushed to do Gandalf to time that with Rings of Power, even though he's potentially not in that. But I think the time has passed. I don't think it's happening, which is major bummer for me. So please prove me wrong, Multiverses team.
If you can legally.
I mean, I would love I would love to see that, because I mean, I think just take those members of the Fellowship. You have so many great iconic villain characters that could work. That would be great. I mean, a 2D fighter, I don't like those usually, but I can just picture that right now with the Mortal Kombat aesthetic. It's dark, it's raining, and you have that those gritty visuals and like that zoomed in look.
The like environmental,
even how good like Gimli would look in that game. Like the fidelity, swinging that axe around. That would be so great.
You could get Lutz with the crossbow and everything like that.
Lurtz.
Lutz.
You change the L to a Y. You drop the R. You gotta.
Lurts, but
Slurp,
yeah,
slurp.
like I just see him, all that. So yeah, even Wormtongue just come there with his little knife and
I
stuff.
don't need
so.
Wormtongue. They can leave him off the
DLC
roster.
character, DLC character.
That was everything on your list,
That's
right?
everything. Yep.
Yeah, we've talked about everything on mine as well. This was a fun discussion. I'm very excited to see when Embracer announces their first, what I'll say, maybe AA or AAA Lord of the Rings project, because I think it will inevitably happen. Because so far, the good thing about Embracer is they're buying a lot of stuff, but it seems like they are almost immediately putting that stuff to use. They aren't sitting on things just to have them for no reason. Like Smog in the Kingdom of Gold, like they are trying to use these things. So I think we will see some Lord of the Rings stuff. And yeah, we got Gollum coming up. At some point it got delayed to who knows when, but I'll be picking that up. I don't think we have much else. I guess, yeah, we got a couple mobile games in the works that who knows if we should be excited for those or not. But
Yeah.
whatever it is from Lord of the Rings department, we will be here reporting it. And yeah, Travis, this was a lot of fun,
Yes, it
jam-packed
was.
episode.
Yeah.
You've been a lot here on Sidequest a lot recently. Last 2 weeks, you've been on here 3 times.
I came
so-
back. I felt like in July and August I wasn't on as much. She had like a lot
Yeah.
of mini reviews, but I'm back with a vengeance. And there'll be a Taylor and I special coming up in October for
Right.
Gotham Knights, and then I'll be back I know I'll be back before then, but for reviews wise, I'll be here for Midnight Suns as well. So some
Yes.
good conversations coming up. So.
A lot of good stuff. Thank you for joining me. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And we will see you again next time. Bye-bye.